That's right. It's the inevitably nonsensical, yet hopefully enjoyable, After Movie Diner. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon? Over at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found, and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. So, without further dribbling, please put down your lemon meringues for the one, the only, John Cross.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the After Movie Diner. Back again in the the co-host hot seat. It is the wonderful Matt Perea. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm great, and it always works out that the first time I speak, there's a fire truck going by. So speaking of hot seat, yeah, we've got a sirens going by in the background.
Don't burn the apartment down. I mean, I once did a podcast late one night in the Bronx when I was on Crosstalk, and my building caught on fire while I was... Well, what was funny was it was sort of a quad building, and my bedroom window merely looked out on other people's windows. So it was some real, rear window, only murders in the building, but like run down and in the Bronx. Those were really nice ones in those films and shows. Mine was just like, oh, look, I can see the couple across the way naked in the kitchen. That's not, I want to cook some eggs, and there's two obese people naked. Nothing that there's anything wrong with being obese and naked. I just don't want to.
No, you don't need it.
I don't personally, when I'm trying to cook eggs, need to see your butt crack in the kitchen. I just don't. I mean, listen, call me old-fashioned, Matt. Call me crazy. But when I'm cooking eggs, no. But and all my windows were open because it was sort of during the summer, and I started to smell smoke. Looked out the window and saw black smoke coming from somewhere. Couldn't see flames, and no alarms were going off, but black smoke was coming from somewhere. So I simply shut all the windows and carried on podcasting. Like, the building could have been on fire. I had no evidence that it wasn't. In fact, I had more evidence that it was than evidence that it wasn't.
But I get it, because it's like, when you're doing the podcast, you finally get this thing scheduled. It's like, man, I don't want to have to reschedule while we're here. We're doing it. It's like,
also, it was live. So live, people got treated to me being like, shit, am I okay? Should I go down? I think when I put it up as a podcast after it was live, I edited out some of the running around, but I think if you listen to the Crosstalk episode with Kirk Howley as a guest in the first season of Crosstalk back in the 2014, 2015 era.
Was that on our night of podcasting where I did the DTVC podcast with Jamie, early, at like 8, and then Crosstalk, and then was it Mohead Wrestling? Was that the...
Well, I think he started with that, but then he did Drunk on VHS.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then it turned out that the people who were running the night were inflating the numbers for their section to make it look like they were super popular, and we weren't. And I'm like, but why would everybody leave? And exactly, I get it. Like, if there's some drop off, like if we're really crap, there might be some drop off, but not everyone would leave. You know what I mean? If you'd listened to whatever bilge show they were putting out, if you sat through that, you'd be like, well, okay, here's more bearded men talking about stuff. I'll continue listening. You wouldn't be like, nope, they're not my specific bearded men. So they were like pumping up their numbers somehow, or all ringing in twice or some bullshit, just to make us look bad. But it's all right. We felt bad, so that's all that mattered. We did feel bad.
because I remember one of the things about the, that iteration of the podcast was I was always on live at 8:00 at night. So like, nobody from England could do the show unless they wanted to be on at like 2 a.m. And then like the West Coast was always hard, like, because, it was like 5 p.m. their time. So it was like, we had this sweet spot of just like, I mean, we did have a couple from the West Coast, but yeah, it was like this sweet spot of all like, the East Coast area, which actually there's a lot of us in the East Coast area. The Comeuppance guys, Freddie Young, Mitch, Video Vago. It's like everybody's kind of we're all kind of clustered in this little Northeast niche. A good chunk of us are. Mo was at that. I guess I was in Florida, right? But he was yeah. Because Jamie was in Georgia at that time. Then she moved to Michigan.
Yes.
And so
she's in Michigan now. I have been trying to get her on the show for I don't know how long, and I cannot get her on the show. So I don't know what's happened to Jamie. Jamie, if you're out there and you're listening to this, and if you ever occasionally be like, oh, I wonder what John and Matt are up to, Jamie, if you're listening to this, email me or something. You don't have to be on social media, but contact me and let's do a podcast lunch or something.
Yeah, right.
Anyway. What have I been thinking about this week, Matt? Well, I tell you what. I tell you what, Matt. No, and I'm. This is going to be a positive moment. This is going to be a heartwarming, Oprah Winfrey. Every teardrop is gold. She's going to be. She's going to be dining out on people's emotions like some kind of hideous, greedy vampire of the soul. That she is. I mean, she just is. But anyway, I know people like to convince themselves she's some kind of saint. But anyway.
Yes.
Simply trading on the troubles of others. Anyway, we're going to have a heartwarming moment. I tell you why. Because normally we're a bit doom and gloom. Normally Normally, I'm the kind of person where I'm like, well, I'll be happy if we're not in civil war by Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, That's kind of where I'm at. Not that I'm panicking about it daily, but I'm certainly at a place where I'm just like, I will not be surprised. Like, I will not be, like, when David Muir, fuck David Muir. But when David Muir comes on TV and he's, he does his stern, very important, I have something important to say. When he says, shots were fired today when, 2 MAGA senators opened fire on two Democratic senators, and then they were escorted out of the building and blah, 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 which led to Texas seceding and bombs going off in Virginia. You know what I mean? So that I will assume that somewhere between November 6th and December 24th that will happen. I just will, unless people are just like, we'll start the coup in January. Maybe they'll be like January 6th. They'll be like, let's get through the holiday. People. Let's get through the holidays. Let's not revolt against a Democratic vote until January. When are the sales done, Margaret? Well, I think January 6th. Oh, well, January 6th would be perfect because we almost tried to revolt last time on January 6th. We got far enough that we killed a couple of cops. The people that we're supposed to be supporting because we have those thin blue line flags everywhere like fucking assholes. Anyway, normally I'm of that ilk.
Right.
Matt, right? You and I sat here. No, I wouldn't say doomsayers, just practically awaiting doom with with some provisions. Let's say, like, we know doom's coming round for dinner, so we've got some fruit and nuts in.
The bowl with the nuts with the crack, right? Like the Brazil nuts and whatnot, and just throw it in a wooden like teak bowl, and there you go.
The hardest snack to casually eat. Whenever I watch old movies, and then, before there were snacks, before there was easy snacks, and you just saw someone, whether it was a Western or whether it was like a Casablanca style set in the 30s kind of movie, whenever you saw like a sweaty guy at a bar in a sort of a thin beige suit, sweating at the bar, wearing a trilby, but cracking nuts, like it's easy. Like you just put a Brazil nut in, pop the nut up, it goes in your mouth, neck. Like when I see that, I always think to myself, back in the day, people needed to know how to do stuff. Like people had to have skills. Nowadays, we just bang a button to see if we can get more things that we want. We just go, Amazon, bring me things, and DoorDash, bring me things, and that's what we do, and it's fine. So normally, that's what I'm feeling. However, Matt, I'll tell you where my hope is coming from. My positivity is coming from. And I still think we're doomed, but I think that if we're doomed, there is a underground resistance that is beginning to show its face. And I'm talking, of course, Matt, of the horror movie fan. Or indeed, as Joe Bob Briggs, the Duke of the Drive-In, would call them, mutants, our mutant fam. Are rearing their heads louder and louder. So it started, I think, this new wave started a little bit with the revival of Joe Bob Briggs. I really do think that brought a lot of people together. And I think it's no mistake that AMC gave him the reins to the Walking Dead episodes and also had him do Friday the 13th on there. I think they're realizing through Shudder just the fact that everyone subscribes for him, and and the funny thing is, we all own the movies that he screens. It's not like we need Shudder to stream, Slumber Party Massacre or Sleepaway Camp. I own them. Like I don't need Shudder for that. I like Shudder because of Joe Bob Briggs. But I think it started a bit like that. But I think it also started with the wave of, and I was just watching. The Roost the other day, which was Ty West's first movie, and his the movie that kind of led to all the other stuff that Ty West has done. And I think with that wave and then sort of Joe Bob coming back, I think those sort of two things have, whether it's You're Next or We're Still Here or those kind of movies, and now with the Terrifier franchise, it's sort of what we're going through now, which I think is really interesting, is if you think of those sort of indie, slightly hipster horror movie guys from the early 2000s to now, the Ty West or whatever of the world, and then you think of Damien Leone and what he's doing with the Terrifier franchise, but also stuff like Greasy Strangler and even things like Destroy All Neighbors and some of the sort of more goofy, gooey sort of body horror stuff we're getting back. I think we're seeing what we saw when we went from something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and to some extent the first Halloween and Evil Dead, some of these more pensive, tense-filled, slow burn horrors. And I think we're now beginning to see the kind of brash, bold, colorful, loud, gloopy horrors that we were getting in the mid-'80s. And that's how I'm going to look at it. And the positive thing is, so not only has Terrifier 3 made $18.6 million, which this last weekend, which is fucking brilliant, but I don't know if you've been out in the Spirit Halloween world or the Walmart world or just going out trying to buy Halloween stuff this year. What is incredible, and I'm basing this only on the last 15 years that I've been doing it here in this country, but in the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen a much bigger rise of horror movie merch over the old traditional, either like Frankenstein, Dracula, Sexy Nurse, whatever, those kind of ones. We're now seeing Sexy Beetlejuice and Sexy Michael Myers and Sexy Nurse. So I think we're getting... No, but what I mean is I walked around almost every different like costume shop or major retailers selling Halloween stuff to decorate your house with. At least a third, if not a half of it, was recognizable Gen X horror stuff, whether that's Freddy, Jason, Michael, Beetlejuice. What was the other one? Oh, Tales from the Crypt. I've seen a lot of like Crypt Keeper stuff. So I just think it's interesting that that's the way it's going, and I think that I choose to be, especially as I just had my horror movie weekend, and I ended it with 2 brand new movies Longlegs and Arcadian, both of which I would recommend, but for different reasons. I'm not only feeling more hopeful in the state of horror in general, and just not only the state of horror, but the security horror now has. You know what I mean? It has a streaming service that knows what it's doing. It has 2 or 3 studios now with A24 and Blumhouse and others who are dedicated to, well, we're just going to put out, oh, you want 3-hour elevated horror with A-list actors standing around crying? Great, fantastic. We'll give you 3 of those a year, you know? But to see something, you know, that was still on the outskirts, something like Terrifier, do that kind of business, I think the tide is turning a little bit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one of the things, I think it's pre-pandemic, I don't know if you noticed this as well, but like if you go to the drugstore or whatever, grocery store or any, you know, late August, you'd start to see Christmas end caps, you know, like maybe like those blue tins or like those large tins of like, you know, like the popcorn, you know, you'd start to see those things creeping in a little bit.
Yeah.
And Halloween almost got like 2 weeks. It was like Halloween was like October 1st, maybe like the 10th or something till like maybe the 30th.
Right.
Like the 31st, you couldn't get Halloween candy on the 31st. Like that was, you know, it was just like they were just pulling everything out and throwing Christmas stuff up as quickly as they could.
Right.
And it feels like now you get a legit, like it seems like when back to school is done in like after like Labor Day or something like that, it's Halloween, you know, like they move into Halloween and you get a good 2 months of it now. And I think that's like you said, kind of to your point, that it seems like there's a bigger horror audience, that people are embracing Halloween more. They're coming back to it. I mean, I think there's also a pushback on the whole Christmas being, you know, a 4-month celebrate, you know, like I think people are pushing back on that now too. People don't find it cute anymore if somebody likes to listen to Christmas music all year round, right? Like that person's not cute anymore. That's not funny.
No.
Right.
Have that person dragged out into the middle of the town square and physically humiliated.
Yeah. And I think horror
maybe
fans
have dogs urinate on them or something.
Right, exactly. And I think, you know, talking about your doom and gloom kind of thing, I think horror fans can be kind of a beacon for this because they are the ones who really started the charge of like, okay, the fall is not pumpkin spice latte season and sweater season and, you know, Instagram influencers with their knit caps, you know, walking with their dogs with leaves in the background.
No.
It's not Christmas, you know, from August on. No. October 1st through, you know, we're going to take this month. This is our month. This is, you know, Horror Appreciation Month is October now. And like they've made it that. Now, granted, horror fans watch horror movies all year round.
Oh, fuck
but
yeah,
they've said, you know, we're not letting Christmas take over Halloween anymore.
No.
And they've claimed it back in a really strong way. I think it's a sign for all of us that if there's something that we love and enough other people we know love it too, you can claim it back. You don't have to just let, you know, you don't have to just let corporate America say, no, we need to get in the black. So we're going to extend Black Friday through, you know, through September.
It's like we're claiming back podcasts, Matt. Right, you know, I did my whole rant about Pump Up the Volume, and you and I single-handedly, and with Gary Hill, but a few beacons, like in Lord of the Rings, where they light the beacon and then it goes like 300 miles and then there's another beacon is lit and it's on a cloudy mountaintop. So even though it's a fucking beacon, no one can see it because it's above the fucking cloud line, but they're lighting fucking beacons all the way across Middle Earth. Yeah. We are those beacon mats. We are those beacons, Matt. Yeah. And so, you know, we need to keep doing this, and we are still doing it, and it's a wonderful thing. Because otherwise, the corporate podcast nightmares win. And I will not let that happen, Matt. No. You will have to pry this mic out of my cold, dead hand. And that's true. But no, I find it super good that the horror community is doing what it's doing. I also know that the horror community is a more liberal community most of the time. Obviously, everyone has their broad political spectrum in any kind of subgenre, but in general, horror, or certainly the people who make horror, that's a better way to say it. Not necessarily the people who watch it, but the people who make horror tend to be universally sort of progressive, more or less, or at least thoughtful, which is always nice. That they're normally thinking about things in order to tell stories about them. It's also one of the few genres where stories are still being told. So instead of blockbusters where I feel like the story has literally become one story, it's there is a villain. The villain is ambiguous because while you understand what the villain is doing, the fact that the villain, the result of the villain doing something is that most of us die. Even though you understand why the villain is doing it and what the villain's psychology is and blah, 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 we just can't stand that level of human death, so we've got to stop the villain, right? That has been the plot of almost every blockbuster superhero movie and or big budget action film forever. All the franchises have come back. They've all got these ambiguous villains because that makes it interesting, right? And I was, well, maybe it did the first time or the second time, but if you thought about anything else other than, you know, well, the world's overpopulated, so my villain is going to kill half the people. Oh, that's funny because that's what literally the last 8 villains have all said they were going to do. But so what I'm loving in horror is instead of people just going, I mean, there's still horror that I'm cynical about. There's still horror where people are just going, well, we know like zombies and tits work, so let's make a movie called Zombie Tits and get on with it. You know, there's still those people, and look, those people they're the carnies of the horror community, and we love them. We absolutely love them, but they are the kind of rough and tumble, scrappy, like, you know what I mean? Oh, we put tits on Bigfoot, you know, whatever it is. You're like, oh, Bigfoot tits, wonderful. Bigfoot zombie tits, well, off to the races. And it just at the very small, but you know, starring Carmen Electra. You're like, she's still around. Is she still doing things? All right, then. There, I get Electra in zombie Bigfoot tits. But anyway, there's still those guys, and God bless them. But what I'm liking is that even the straight to Shudder or straight to streaming or even straight to video horror, like what I mentioned, Arcadian, for example, which I don't think, if it got a theatrical release, it was for a week and blink and it was gone. Watching that on streaming or owning that now on Blu-ray, these are movies that have thoughts, emotion, characters, storylines, yes, some complexity and yes, some exploitation, because you can't make a horror film without a smidge of exploitation. But it's I don't know. I just think they're doing really well with all of it, and I'm very positive about it. And one last thing about on the subject is a personal thing, which is that I think I had got, and I was certainly getting known for this, but I think I had got a little set in my ways and bent out of shape about a lot of stuff. For example, 5 years ago, me would have been very snooty about Terrifier and gone, well, you know, it's just gore for gore's sake. Like, what's the fucking, you know what I mean? I would have been, and I wouldn't have been wrong. You know, I'm not going to say that Terrifier is going to replace Michael Myers or Jason for me, but, you know, I definitely would have been more snooty about it. I would have compared it more to the films of Rob Zombie than, say, the films of John Carpenter or even Wes Craven. But now, for whatever reason, and again, maybe it's because we're on Doom's doorstep, we've rung the bell and we're just waiting for Doom to let us in with open arms. Maybe it's because of that I've just kind of thrown a lot of my preconceived bullshit out the window, or maybe I'm just mellowing with age, or maybe I'm doing that thing where, and Jim and I used to talk about this all the time, where you feel that middle-aged male white crap creep into your head, where you're like, well, I mean, it's not wrong that men have toilets, you know, whatever it is. Like I don't say that, but you know, you hear that thing in people's heads. Well, you know, I'm worried about women in the bathrooms, you know, being molested, and in their head that sounds perfectly reasonable because they've succumbed to middle-aged white nonsense brain, and it comes for all of us. But I am fighting it with every single bone, breath, and hair in my body, and I think because I'm fighting it, I'm moving more into a sort of Zen Buddhist dude state where let people have their Terrifiers, let it make $18.5 million, let horror rise again to overtake the commodity and banality of the Marvel movies.
Well, you know, and I think what makes the Terrifier thing all that much better is that you get this situation with Warner, right, where it looks like this Joker movie is going to lose them more money than the tax write-off they got by burying Batwoman or Batgirl.
Right.
Like that's how bad this thing is going to do. And it's like that the director who did like The Hangover and like whatever, Old School and stuff that.
He did a Road Trip.
Right, exactly.
Off the back of American Pie and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that guy had a win, right? He had a win with the first Joker. So what do? You give him $200 million and say, have at it? And it's like, I don't know, because I think their thinking was, well, Tim Burton, right? He made the first Batman, and we gave him a blank check, and he made something amazing with Batman Returns. So I think they thought maybe we'll touch.
Except at the time, the studio didn't think Batman Returns was amazing. I think Batman Returns has got more kudos now that we're all older, now that the Batman generation is older, we're telling the people watching comic book movies today, no, Batman Returns is fucking awesome. Like, it's dark and weird, and Danny DeVito is fucking grotesque. Like, it's the closest Tim Burton's ever come to doing true, like, grotesquerie. Then you've got Christopher Walken and Billy D. Williams. I mean, you've just got so many cool... Not to mention, then, of course, the Queen herself, Michelle Pfeiffer, as Catwoman. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's a tremendous sequel. And I wish Burton had done 2 more. Not that I'm not a Schumacher fan, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, so it's like you've got this thing where Warner. I think people wanted Warner to. I think people were hoping for a good Joker movie because they liked the first one, so I think they were hoping the second one. And I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. I can't say either way. But I think one of the things that makes this Terrifier thing sweeter for more people is that it did better than the Joker,
right?
Because you had Deadpool and Wolverine, which I loved Deadpool and Wolverine. It was just,
but I would even count. I would even count Deadpool and Wolverine as part of this more weird and wonderful generation that we're moving into. Because think of the gore, violence, swearing, and sure, the plot was, Marvel beige nonsense and whatever. But he hung enough vulgar, grotesque baubles on that bare tree that we all were entertained. So I think that when you start a major comic book movie with someone beating a bunch of people to bloody pulps with the bones of one of your most beloved characters who has died, that is a turning of the tide, because they can't ignore that now. They can't ignore that. They can't ignore Terrifier. They can't ignore that people out there want adult fucking movies with cool shit happening in them. Again, please.
Well, now that's a really great point, because Kevin Feige, I think is what we've dubbed it.
Kevin Feige. Or Feige. Feige is also, or Feige. Feige or Feige. It's either one.
I mean, I don't know that they necessarily had a bad year last year, because, I mean, everybody focuses on the Marvels, but I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 did really well. But just the same, the optics were that they had a bad year. And he says, okay, and Bob Iger too, obviously the big CEO.
Bob Iger. Kevin Feige and Bob Iger. Yeah.
They could have said, all right, let's keep doing the same crap we're doing, or let's do something. Let's let Ryan Reynolds do the movie. Let that crew do the movie that they're going to do.
Right.
And it wins in this big way. I mean, talking about the whole, conservatives or whatever. I mean, this whole idea that Disney is like go woke, go broke kind of thing. Well, they got like $3 billion in 2 movies this year, so I think people are okay with they've got enough. They're making enough money. Enough of us don't care.
When I see big corporations like Disney that own half the planet, quote unquote, going woke. Right. That means that's the future. That means you can't put that genie back in the bottle. You can't go, everyone has to go back to, not being gay, not being trans, not being black, not being in a childless marriage, or you can't be in a marriage, you can't share your bed until you're in a marriage. Like, you can't put any of that back. You can't put the sexual revolution and civil rights and gay rights back into it. You just can't. So these things are happening whether MAGA wankers like it or not. And they're happening because the major corporations have backed them. So it's the other hope that I have. Like, when I see shit like that, I'm like, it actually doesn't really matter half the time who's in the White House, because if now, listen, I'm not saying corporations are good. They've also decided to poison us and, feed us dangerous amounts of drugs and get us hooked on barbiturates, and you fed us food that will give us massive cancers and all sorts of stuff. I mean, look, I'm not. They've polluted our oceans, polluted our land. Like, I'm not pro-corporation. I'm just saying that in terms of, waves or progressive moves forward, once General Motors and Disney have agreed on something, we're off to the races. That's all I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we see the horror, weirdo, mutant family, call us what you will, the great unwashed, our rebellion and our revolution might not come in the form of violence. It might come in the fact that we simply, with our pocketbooks, force Hollywood to start making films in which clowns horribly mutilate people. That would be incredible. If Mr. Hollywood, the guy with the big cigar, the producer we all imagine, what is this movie? What is this thing that just made $18 million? Oh, it's called Terrifying. What is Hollywood? What is it? A clown mutilates people. What? I want 10 clown mutilation pictures in, you know what I mean? Like I want them in production yesterday. Who do we have who knows clowns and death? Like,
it's funny. I was reading about how with Die Hard 3, they wanted to make it kind of similar to the other Die Hards with the same paradigm, and they couldn't because there were so many Die Hard ripoffs coming out.
Right.
Can you imagine if they go to make Terrifier 4 and all the studios have just made so many Terrifier ripoffs that they can't do a clown mutilating people, that they got to go completely bonkers with it?
What's like a clown? Well, we can't do a bearded woman. That's out. And he goes, Sasquatch. What about Slugface Boy? Slugface Boy goes on a kill rampage. Whatever. You've got like one of those guys like in Freaks that's just in a sack with no arms or legs. It's not about, I'm being offensive. I'm just saying that the people with no arms and legs used to be adjacent to clowns in things. So it's right that you can make a horror movie about a slug boy who kills people with his teeth. Maybe slices the Achilles tendon with a dagger that he's had in his teeth like a pirate skeleton.
Yeah. What is it? Is it UC Santa Cruz or the banana slugs? That's their mascot. So maybe he's he's at a football game doing his mascot thing and he gets hit by lightning and he turns into the banana slug.
I tell you what, there is a lucrative, and me and my friend Nick have talked about this. We even did an episode on baseball horror. There is a lucrative sub-genre to be mined that has not yet been mined enough in my book. And that is sports horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sports horror think about it, Matt. We've had Die Hard in a sports stadium with sudden death, and we
had the Fan. We've had stalker killers. I mean,
right.
Freaking, De Niro pulling out a knife at home plate in the middle of a baseball game. Like, it doesn't get more beautiful than that,
right? Or or the guy trying to kill the Queen in Naked Gun at a baseball game.
That's right.
Or know about 85 different endings of Adam Sandler movies where the woman he loves is finally realizes that he's a good guy while at a ball stadium filled with cameos. But, and I love Adam Sandler, I'm just saying that's what happens. Yeah. But imagine, your Shamalama, what's his name, tried to do a slasher at a concert. And he was like, well, I'm going to go film a real concert. And while the concert's going on, I'm going to make like this Josh Hartnett slasher, right? Isn't that what that movie was all about?
Trap, I think, yeah.
Trap, right.
Yeah.
My friend Nick and I have talked about this all the time. Imagine the possibilities for a slasher, a slow-burning, slow-rising slasher taking place at a major baseball game, like at a World Series kind of baseball game, and there is an ex-pissed-off zombie ghost, baseball player in some kind of raggedy clothing going around with the catcher's mask on and a baseball bat filled with razor blades or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you watch that fucking movie like every week?
Yeah, because what you could do, like for example, Pete Rose, who just passed away recently, right? He didn't get in the Hall of Fame because of the gambling thing.
Right.
So you could have like this old timey, you almost do like 8 Men Out, right? So like this old timey guy who like, he got banned from baseball because he was gambling on the sport, and then his ghost comes back and it haunts the park, and it's like, Yeah, and I mean, there's all these old traditions with baseball. So like one of the traditions with baseball is if you've got a new person at the park, you tell them you got to find the key to the batting cage. And so the way the joke works is you say, oh, go to this person to get the key to the batting cage. And then when they go to that person says, no, go to that person for the key to the batting cage. And you end up going all over the park. Like they did it, I think, on a road rules one, because there's a woman from Israel who didn't understand baseball. They just sent her all over the park trying to find the key to the bat. So like, jokes like that, that's like, oh, they're sending the poor guy to go get the key to the batting cage. Wait, why didn't he come back? I don't know. Where did he come back?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of things like that. And again, why stop with it just being sports horror? Why not make it sports horror action? Like, why not imagine sudden death, but at a baseball park, right? And instead of the bad guy being like a wealthy industrialist or whatever who wants to do, use the park to smuggle drugs, whatever. What's the plot of Sudden Death? Like, the Powers Booth is trying to do something.
What the hell was Powers Booth doing? Yeah, I haven't seen. It's funny because it's like one of my favorite. It's like probably one of my favorite.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, he fights a guy in the penguin forever.
Yeah, the woman in the penguins. I mean, you're fighting a mascot. I mean, one of the greatest exploding helicopters in the history of movies.
Of course, fucking incredible. Yeah. Peter Hyams, we've had him on the show. He's a phenomenal guy. Made some of Van Damme's best films, in my opinion. But no, so why not make it that? What if there's the like? So if the ghost is like this big aggressive old timer guy. What if there's a guy who he left the Yankees about 10 years ago, or left whatever baseball team. I'm sorry, I'm watching the Yankees because they're playing game 2 with...
they are right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, they won last night.
They were 3-0 for almost the whole game, and now they're 3-2. So Cleveland managed to get 2 runs. But no, what I was going to say was, imagine that's going on. World Series game like this one, killer in the ballpark, and... a guy who, once he left the baseball team, succumbed to drink and drugs, had just got on the wagon and was just like trying to put his life back together, but he was still pretty raw. And he's the one that has to step up and McClane style fight this ghost zombie. Because you could put all my favorite genres in one movie. You could, you know what I mean? You could make it a sports movie, a horror movie, and an action movie. And you wouldn't even have to bend the genres that much. Like, it all fits pretty well together. You've got a built-in A-plot with whoever's going to win the game. So you have to make it like a super tense game. Maybe it's like the Cubs in the World Series, like the underdog forever. And this is their, like, only chance. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to... Yeah, and I'm not crazy because let's not forget that John Cusack made a movie in which playing classical piano, like it was basically like Die Hard in a classical recital. Right. Like that was a movie. Like it was a horror movie about a guy having to play a piece perfectly, and if he didn't play it perfectly, the whole place would explode. It was like Speed on pianos. Like if you want... Chopin, but it's really like, any minute now everyone could die. There is a movie, I'm not kidding, it's totally true, called Grand Piano, and the plot of it is that he has to play the piece completely correct or the entire auditorium blows up. Listen, if you can make that fucking movie, you can make ghost zombie baseball killer in the park on a World Series game having to be defeated by a slightly over-the-hill slugger who had some issues with alcohol but was now on the mends. Yeah. And maybe he gets his wife back at the end of the movie. His team wins, his wife sees him, he delivers and then it just, she runs up the steps, hugs him, the team's won, he's won, the guy's been vanquished, and then, of course, right at the very end, it pans all the way down through the dugout and to a little, like, basket of balls or something. Right. And then we just see like a ghostly hand shoot out of the balls and then the movie ends. It's so like it. I want to watch that movie.
I see Thomas Jane and the lead.
Yes.
Thomas Jane, because he's perfect aging baseball player, right? Like he's got all what you want from an aging baseball player.
Isn't he in 51 with
I think he is.
Billy? Is it Billy Crystal?
Billy Crystal at least directed it, but yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, 61, right? Because it was the asterisk.
Oh, I thought it was 51.
Yeah, because it's Roger Maris, right? He had the 61 homers, but they gave him the asterisk because he did it he had more. He did it in more games. It was a bigger season than when
so yeah,
Babe
maybe
Ruth was. Yeah.
Well, because way back when we did, it's 61. Yeah. TV movie with Billy Crystal and Thomas Jane and a bunch of other people. But we did an episode of the podcast where we watched 61 and 42, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because that had just come out. The Harrison Ford movie about Jackie Robinson. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know, dude. I'm feeling. I'm trying to quash middle age. I'm looking forward though for a good midlife crisis. Like I really am. I think I'm going to shave my head and get a bunch of tattoos or something. I'm looking forward to like going whacked out for my midlife crisis.
Speaking of Van Damme, you got to go to Antwerp, right? Because that's a double team, right? Where
yes. Yes, I've got to go to Antwerp because apparently Antwerp is the seediest, sexiest, most leather-wearing town in Europe.
So I think it's been like 27 years. I have a feeling that Antwerp. It would be great if Antwerp, like in the late 90s, Van Damme world, it was just all like leather bars and tattoos.
I think it was. I think that's why Van Damme filmed that sequence there, because I believe that was really filmed in Antwerp and not just three empty doorways on a Hollywood lot. No, I'm really looking forward to a midlife crisis, but I also think I'm trying to go forward with as much Zen-like. It's not optimism. I'm still the cynic at heart. I still am like, well, it'll all end tomorrow. But I don't know. I'm a little more. I tell you what, I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying being able to watch anything. There was a whole period of time where I was like, I'm not in the mood for that. I'm not in the mood for that. I'm not in the mood for that. And I ended up watching the same 5 films over and over again and cursing anyone who liked anything different to me. And I'm sorry about that era, people. But now I'm watching all sorts of stuff, dude. I'm watching stuff that I wouldn't have watched before, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm watching a ton of modern horror stuff that I'm really enjoying. And I'm going to give the Terrifier franchise a go. Why not? Why not? Come on now. I might even watch a Rob Zombie movie. Steady on, John. But I might. I might even support Eli Roth's right to keep making movies. Again, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not. Please stop making movies, Eli Roth. But I'm all for this new wave in mad horror. And I think it's going to usher in a new age until about January 6th, and then we're all fucked. But whoever wins. Right. If it hasn't happened between November 6th and January 6th, then I would be surprised. Like if I creep into February being like, really? Like everyone just accepted this? Okay, good. Yeah. Then I'll be okay. But I'm not holding out hope for that.
No, it is one of those things where it's like mentally, it's like, man, like this, we don't know what this thing's going to look like.
But I think that I keep seeing the sun through the clouds. Like I keep seeing, whether it's the horror thing or whether it's the, more people going solar in my area or more people in electric cars in my area or the expansion of like Pride and LGBTQ IA plus protections in our schools and things like that. I'm very happy, and we want to keep doing that. Also, with the proliferation of the Yankees and the Maple Leafs winning games, I think I want to see proliferation of that. Also, Hollywood, get on my baseball slasher. The only thing is, I would make it tomorrow, but you would need a ballpark and at least either CGI people or thousands or enough people to fill up a section. Even if you moved those people to make this stadium look more full than it was, I would still need at least like a couple of hundred people to fill some chairs. And I just don't have that. So unfortunately, it is not something where people can just be like, well, John, you go make that movie. Sure, I could make that movie at like a Little League park in New Milford, but it's not the same thing.
No, exactly. No.
And let's bring it around to the 2 movies that we picked this week, Matt, because again, we've been we have decided that going forward, we're going to do a couple of movies an episode, and we're going to do movies that both are movies I really should have seen for one reason or another, whether it's a director, actor, makeup effects person, whatever. Like, I should have seen that Tom Savini movie, or I should have seen that Donald Pleasance movie, or I should have seen that Kurt Russell film, whatever it is. If they're an actor or a director or a special person, a soundtrack artist, whatever, if I haven't seen that film, and I really should have done because I've seen so many other movies, we're going to cover one of those. And then the other thing we're going to do is delve into our VHS abyss that comes out of the fact that I started this video store, Be Kind Movie Vault, and I'm repping that T-shirt tonight, Matt. Do you know why? Because the Mayor Pete Bass of our town, New Milford, came round this morning to Be Kind Movie Vault, and we filmed a segment for his social media. So I'm about to be on Mayor Pete Bass's social media. I'm about to get, as I told him to his face, I said, I'm about to get the Mayor Bass bump. And he said, oh, I like that, the Mayor Bass bump. And without missing a beat, I went, you can have that. That one's free.
That's awesome.
Now, unfortunately, the cameras weren't rolling when we had that back and forth. That would have been a great way to start. You know, on like the Sean Penn goes through his movie career for Variety or whatever videos on YouTube. There's always like a clip before they go into the timeline of his career, whatever the meme is. There's always a clip of him being like, "Oh, really? I was in that movie," or whatever. There's always like a pre-credit clip sequence. It would have been really good if the Mayor Bass bump joke that we had back and forth, where I said, oh, you can have that, that's free. That would have been a great pre-credit, like a pre-Bass bump. You know what I mean? It would have been Yeah, it's
like when you watch the documentary and they show the subject coming to sit down.
Yes.
And they're kind of like, do you want me to sit here? Is this good? Yeah, you're fine. Okay, all right. What do we want to talk about? The fact that you killed 30 people.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then it's like kind of a zoom in on their face. And
yeah.
Count 30.
The fact that you were involved in 88 counts of murder, rape, and extortion before your 25th birthday. So, that old thing. Anyway. But no, he interviewed me today. I rambled like an idiot, but I was wearing my Be Kind T-shirt.
Nice.
So, yes, Be Kind Movie Vault is a video store that I've opened up in New Milford, Connecticut, the best town in these United States. It's not, I love Pittsburgh. I love New York City. I love Philadelphia. There's plenty of places I love. New Milford, to me, though, I feel like there is a part of me, and again, maybe this is the middle-aged man of me creeping in, I don't know. But I think you should fucking love where you live. I just think you should fucking love where you live. And I get that everyone doesn't have the fucking luxury to do that. I get that there are people who live in really horrible fucking things. But hopefully most people love where they live. Hopefully most people do not look around. Even if you live in the projects or a dust bowl somewhere or somewhere that's extraordinarily poor, or God forbid if you've lost your home in one of these horrible, horrible, horrible storms. And I feel for you, and I've donated to you, and I hope that you get yourself back on your feet. But I also hope that the reason to rebuild an Asheville, North Carolina is because you fucking love Asheville, North Carolina for all its foints and foibles. I don't know why it's important, but it seems to be important, and I like walking around New Milford. When I bring friends to New Milford, I like showing off New Milford. It feels good, and listen, I'm not beating up any. Like if someone from Brookfield or Bridgewater next door show up and is like, "Well, I think Brookfield's better," I'd be like, "All right, dude, good." I'd slap them on the back and move on. I'm not fighting anyone over New Milford, but I do love New Milford, and the mayor of New Milford, Mayor Pete Bass, is a hilarious man. He is a hilarious man because he is, first of all, he's wonderfully bearded. Spectacularly Greek, body hair like you wouldn't believe. I mean, really a hairy man in the best way. But to accentuate, so he was a wrestler in high school, and I think he's always felt that, small towns are all that Bruce Springsteen song "Glory Days." That's what. But you have to be, the thing that song misses out is that sometimes that's okay. It's okay to have had a moment where you felt you were in your glory. Some people have no moments at all. Yeah. It's also okay to be fat and over the hill and propping up a bar in some small town. That's okay. That is success. You know what I mean? You didn't kill anyone. You didn't shit on anyone. You hopefully didn't rape anyone. And you're just sitting, propping up a bar, a little overweight, drinking your drink because you've had a hard day at work, and it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Glory days are absolutely fine. But Pete Bass is, and I love Pete Bass. I love Mayor Bass. He is the walking epitome of like glory days, because I understand, like in the 50s, when someone would have a packet of cigarettes and they would roll up their T-shirt sleeve to put a packet of cigarettes in. And then I understand that there are items of clothing called tank tops. What I don't understand is why anyone, like when you see these people who roll up their T-shirt sleeves, right? They do this. They roll up their T-shirt sleeves. And I'm like, first of all, it's not making you any cooler. And secondly, stop trying to show off your guns as if anyone really gives a fuck. I always like to drive past when I see someone there and go, nobody cares. There was a guy, where were we driving the other day? And there was just we were at a waterfall hike in upstate New York when we went to this weekend music festival, and we went for a waterfall hike, and out of nowhere there was a shirtless guy in tiny shorts on a BMX riding perilously up and down on the slippery rocks above the waterfall, and like doing it in a way where he was like, I don't care that you're looking at me, but keep looking at me. I want you to look at me, but I don't care that you're looking at me. And as I walked past him before I went out to the car park and we drove away, I as we walked past him, I just looked at him. I went, nobody cares, mate. Nobody cares. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but nobody cares. You might think they care because they're all like looking at you, but really they're looking at you going like, I hope he fucking falls and cracks his head open, because then this trip round this hiking trip round a fucking waterfall in the middle of New York will be worth it, because I will have seen some fucking twazzock on a BMX bike fucking dive over fucking crevasse into a watery and stony grave. That because he was cycling up and down like a fucking tit in Speedo-sized fucking denim shorts with, 85 fucking abs and multiple like arm muscles. Nobody cares. I don't know how to stop these people and go, you care, but nobody else cares. Him walking around with his shirt off would be like me setting up a booth in the middle of the town and talking loudly about movies through a megaphone. Just going like, I like movies. Why do you like movies? I like movies because they've got action and whatever. Because movies are something that means something to me.
Yeah.
Right? Him working out and getting a toned physique means something to him. He's fuck all to anyone else. Everyone else wishes he would die because he's just making everyone else feel bad about themselves. Right? Everyone else is just like, oh, I could have that body if I didn't, have to work, earn money, if I wasn't forced to eat the cheapest foods in the supermarket and therefore end up eating foods with a higher fat, sugar, salt, and arsenic content than most other foods. If I deprived myself of happiness, sanity, hours in the day, if I didn't sleep, if I got up at 5 a.m, sure, I could have that physique. I could have that physique for 5 minutes until someone went, John, do you want a donut? And then immediately the physique would hit my knees again. I could totally fucking have that. Of course I can have that. I don't want to have that because it sounds awful. It sounds like such masturbatory, nonsensical gibberish. But if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. I'm not judging people who do it, but then don't fucking show up with a BMX in a public place and ride up and down demanding people look at your fucking abs. Put a shirt on and have some self-cocking respect. Nobody needs to see your nipples on a dewy Sunday morning. Nobody. Not even you. So put a shirt on, right? Get off your fucking bike because it's a hiking trail. It's not, I can't tell you, Matt, the number of people while I was hiking, this is true. We were hiking around a hiking trail near a fucking waterfall, hiking. It's a hiking trail, a waterfall. The number of bikes who didn't even have a fucking bell on that just came whizzing through and they would just go, behind you, but they would do it like kind of like, Bahama, and you wouldn't hear what they said. And then the next thing you know, you're getting buzzed by some fucking cock goblin on a bike. Is there anyone more wretched than bikers? I think cyclists are more wretched than vegans. What do you think?
Well, I have to confess that I was one in Portsmouth, in New Hampshire. I cycled a lot, but here in Philly, it is part of it is
this podcast is over.
Right, yeah. Part of the issue is here in Philly, because driving is so aggressive. People on bikes ride on the sidewalk, and they just are constantly zipping by. And it's like anytime I start to hear a faint chain in the background, I've got to look for where that thing's coming from and move out of the way.
Oh, I want them to hit me because I want to sue their fucking ass back to the Stone Age. Like an American would, Matt. That's my one American thing. I wouldn't, like, if someone, if there was a legitimate accident, a legitimate problem, I'd be like, look, shit happens, I'll be fine. But if a cyclist hits me, Matt, on a sidewalk, oh, you better know I'm suing that guy back to his fucking infancy.
I don't know if I'd get any money out of him. I don't know, but it's.
I would.
But
I'd hunt them to the end of their lives.
Yeah. But I think on a hiking trail it would be even worse because it's like, get your bikes off the hiking trail. It's I like for me when I was biking. I mean, part of it was that I was using it to get back and forth to work, because I don't drive and all that stuff, and so I was like doing that, and then I was like kind of building up to like longer rides and things like that. But like riding on the sidewalk. If I was on the sidewalk in downtown Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is another great town. You're talking about good towns.
Oh yeah,
it used to be a great town. I think it's a little bit messy now because of like how built up it is and everything. But I'd get off the bike and I'd walk it. Yeah, I'd just get off the bike and walk it. I'm not going to ride past people on the sidewalk there. I don't need to do that. But yeah, I mean, like here in Philly, the moment I moved down here, I stopped doing it because I was like, I can't ride with these cars here, and I'm not going to ride on the sidewalk, and it's not worth it.
I trust you, Matt. I feel like I know you well enough that you would not inconvenience or, God forbid, hurt other humans who are using the sidewalk or the hiking trail for its intended purpose, foot walking. Yes. I would assume that you would assess the amount of people on the trail, assess whether you could safely pass them at speed or not, and then, if not, get off the bike and walk the bike through the people and then get back on the bike and ride. I would assume you would be that person of a... and a lot of people were like, wow, you go on and above. No, that's not on and above. That's just normal human fucking behavior. Yeah. It's not on and above. It doesn't make you a great person. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you a human being, how we should all fucking behave on this planet.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of our existence now, is that if you just are a human, if you just do like what humans do, it's like considered on and above.
Oh,
yeah.
I see on Instagram all the time, like, he's the best father, and it shows him playing with a kid and reading the kid a book and feeding the kid. And I'm like, no, that's just father. That's just right. The fact that we all had such atrociously shitty fathers and shitty mothers, if we're all fucking honest with ourselves. I don't know where mother suddenly became this fucking saintly occupation. Most mothers I've ever met are fucking awful. But at being mothers, they might be great at being humans, but they're fucking awful at being mothers, which explains our generation and every generation that's come since. We are all... I mean, if you want to know where all these therapists came from, it's because we all had fucking shitty parents. Now, I don't disagree. Like, maybe all parents should be in some way shitty. Maybe that's why we get off the couch, get out the house, and make our own fucking life. Because we're like, I'm not hanging around with these fucking goons any longer. I'm gonna go out and forge my own way in the world. Maybe that's the cycle of evolution that should be happening, Matt. And I'm not against that. However, we did all have shitty parents, which is why we all took up podcasting. That's exactly the reason why. Shitty parentage has led us to podcasting and staving off suicide with salty and sweet snacks. And how dare you judge us for doing otherwise? Yes. But then we start seeing stuff on Instagram where it's like, oh, he's so good because he holds a hand as they cross the road on their way to school. No, that's just being a dad. And yet somehow it's now elevated. However, we have overcompensated with this thing about mothers. Again, I'm not going to go into a
mom life. Hashtag mom life.
Hashtag mom life. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to go into
that's a millennial thing.
It is. Well, it's what it is, Matt. It's a way to, and this is ironic, right? This is ironic because most people who are hashtag mom life would probably consider themselves, I would guess, left of center or at least center. I don't think hashtag mum life is like a right leaning thing. I think it's a feminist left leaning thing. I think.
I think there is a conservative because there's like a whole like Hobby Lobby. Michael's
there's a hockey. There's the hockey mom. I guess so. Maybe mums are more Republican than.
There's both. There's definitely both.
Well, they want to censor everything as well, don't they? Don't mums want to censor all this shit?
Yeah, there's an element of moms that, like you said, like moms for banning books or something they're called. I don't know if they're,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So there's
mums
them.
are terrible. I go
Yeah.
back to my original statement. Mums are terrible. Fuck all these groups, mums for whatever, mums for another thing.
Well, Mothers
Mums are
Against
terrible.
Drunk Driving.
They're like,
That was like
this was the irony of it. So some people want to go back to the 50s paradigm where one person works and one person stays at home. Let me allow you a guess of what genitals the person who stays at home has, and the person who has to like clean the house and keep the children, whatever. Now, being a housewife, that was a fucking job. That was a fucking job. That was a job. My grandmother, like, she raised fucking 3 children. She learned how to fucking cook everything under the sun. She kept a pristine, clean house. She used to darn and sew and all that stuff, my grandfather's clothing. So, like, yeah, she earned her stripes and then some, like, over and over again. I will never ever say that wasn't work. But hashtag mum life over some mimosas at some brunch while your kid bawls in the fucking chair next to you. And you go, oh, at this age, it's the terrible twos that they're crying. No, it's because you've taken them out for fucking girly brunch and you're paying them 0 bits of attention. Hashtag mum life, hashtag mimosa, hashtag go fuck your children. But I'm just saying, not everyone gets points for everything. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
What about this? When you see in a supermarket, not one but 2 parents, and they've brought their kids with them.
Yes.
And I go, no. Yeah. The man or the woman, I don't care which one, or the man and the man, or the woman and the woman, or the trans nondescript gender person and the trans nondescript gender person, binary, whatever it is. Whoever the 2 people are. One of you stay at home with the kids and one of you go shop. That's how this shit works. Right? One person goes off and hunts the boar, and the other one tends to the kids and the fire back in the cave. That's how the shit. It is. And before people are like, "Well, that's a very narrow-minded." It's not. I don't care what gender you are, what type of relationship you have, what kind of love you do. I don't care what kind of sex you have. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what clothes you wear. I don't care what toilet you use, and I don't care what sports teams you support. But I do care that if you are caring for a younger version of yourself, whether that was through sexual intercourse, IVF, or you adopted, or you had a surrogate, or however you had that kid. If you are looking after a kid, make sure one of you is looking after the kid. End of story. Don't all 4 of you try and take up my fucking supermarket lane at fucking 4:30 in the afternoon. Where I'm like, no, bitch, I'm shopping. What the fuck is your entire family screaming and running around and throwing stuff and I want this chocolate and blah, 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 blah. What on earth? Also, adult life is so tedious. Yeah. Why on earth would you want to introduce your children to a world of mundanity and fucking cereal aisles that never end? Because they're like, we found a way to put 88 different types of sugar and coloring and other toxins on corn loops.
Yes.
Or hoops or whatever you want to call them. So why would you want to bring your I would want children. People always say, well, I want my child to be a child. Fine, then let them be a fucking child. Right. Letting them be a child is not like having them in a sling around your neck while you discuss tiny coffees with someone named Marjorie. Like, this is like fucking parenting 101. Love your kid. And I tell you what, all these people who are like, wow, the sanctity of humanity and the great children, whatever. 5 minutes into the pandemic, they were like, when can I get rid of my child? My child is driving me nuts. Right. I'm like, have you tried loving them? Have you tried maybe prioritizing them over your bullshit job that you somehow think is more important than your own fucking flesh and blood? Have you tried doing that? Or is it just, there was the famous newscaster when he was on BBC News.
Oh, right, yes, and the kid walks in.
Right, and his son walks in or whatever. And 2 things happen. First of all, he started to do this to his child and like pushing him out the way. And then the second thing, a woman, I don't know whether it was the nanny or the wife or whoever.
I think it was his spouse. Because I think the backstory was that was his spouse.
Comes running in and starts grabbing, like forcibly grabbing the children's arms and dragging them out of the room. And I'm like, What did I just watch? Did I just watch someone who was on the news that's meant to be a factual TV show,
Right.
deny the existence of being a parent live on TV? Wouldn't it have been much nicer if he'd gone, "Oh, I'm sorry, my son's come in. This is Bobby, by the way. Say hello, everyone, Bobby. All right, thanks, Bobby. Go back to mummy now," or whatever. Like, I'm not sat at home being like, finish whatever bullshit opinion you have, and I don't want your children on the picture. It would actually be something I might care about if your kid came in the room.
Yeah, well, it's like my manager. She's in Switzerland, but she works from home sometimes. Sometimes she's in the office there in Switzerland, and she'll be we're on a call, and so like, one of her kids is homesick that day, and so the child will come in and sort of and it kind of like you said, it kind of annoys her because she doesn't want to be dealing with it. She's like, okay, I have to be a parent though, but it's like. You're a parent. It's fine. It's not like I'm not going to learn what I need to learn from our conversation that we're having, about what tasks you need me to carry out or what our next plan of action is for certain things. Right. I'm going to get it all. I think there's almost like an apologetic part of it. Like, I'm so sorry that I'm bothering you, and to be honest, it's not intrusive. I think it could be intrusive for sure, right? Like, it could get to a point where, like, if she was just like, yep, my kids are running around and it's great and everything like that. But it's like, this is like a one-off situation where your child's home, and so I think that's kind of where, like you said, like it's like there's sort of like the two elements of it, but like that guy in that situation was a one-off situation where his child ran in the room,
right? And
it's not like every time he's on the BBC doing a thing that somebody that his kid runs in. It's just a one-off situation.
So here's the thing. Here's my line.
Yeah.
When offices were up and running, and we were all in the offices, and that was the only paradigm, right? That was the only choice that we had, was office bound, pay us enough to exist, but not pay us enough to leave, right? Or have any kind of life that we want to have. So what would happen occasionally, especially if someone on the team had a new baby or whatever, they would bring the baby in. I don't know whether they would announce it or not announce it, but suddenly there would be a baby in the office.
Right.
And everything would stop. Like, all work would stop, and people would start cooing over the baby. And, John, did you get a picture with the baby? And did you see the baby? And whatever. And I would be like, twofold. First of all, don't bring your baby into an office. It's the supermarket rule. It's adult life. It's boring. It's tedious. It's beige. It's not interesting. It's the rows and rows and rows of sugary corn cereals that all taste the same but all have different branding. That is sitting in an office all day in cubicles with people named Nigel who you loathe and want to hit with a shoe. That's adult life to some extent. Not always, but to some extent. First of all, don't bring your child in and around that scenario. It is so irresponsible because you are immediately being like, child, this is what you have to look forward to. This is all you will ever achieve, is this level of mundane insanity. First of all, there's that. Second of all, I don't care about your child. Here's the difference, right? I don't give a fuck about your child. Don't bring your child into work and be like, I demand you use some kind of polite society to say that I, someone who's working at work in an office, not a play group, not a Chuck E. Cheese, not a hospital, not a schoolyard, at an office in Manhattan, why is there a baby at my desk and there be a demand on me for me to stop what I'm doing to pay attention to your child? Because guess what? The people who bring their children into the office, it's not about the children. It's about them. They want to be like, look, I made a thing. Look, I did something with my life. You don't have one of these. This is a status symbol. That's why I fucking hate it, Matt. I hate people forcing their children on me. However, if you choose to have children, and if we are going to live in what is essentially no more than a glorified tribal community, we all know that we have sex. We all know that sex produces a child, and we all know that adults have children, right? We all know that children exist on the planet. We all know the purposes of children and how children come about. So why, if we're on a so-called quote-unquote adult television program and a child somehow gets into that scenario, are we all meant to pretend that child doesn't exist? That child fully exists. And not only that, we know that child is that child of that person that we are talking to. let us at least see a little bit of their humanity. So on one hand, and again, with the pandemic thing, I'm like, have you tried loving your child? Have you tried loving your child, right? Instead of being like, oh, and secondly, if you don't want to love your child, demand from whatever person you vote for at Congress that teachers get paid a lot more. Because if you don't want to look after your kid, right, and you don't want to have to deal with your kid, then at least vote for the people who will pay the teachers a livable wage who do look after your children, because you don't want to look after your children, because it's all about you, and you had children as a status symbol, not because you actually had any interest in being a fucking parent. So that's where I draw the line right now. So on one hand, I care very much about the child, and I want the child to have a glorious, childish, inspired, and creative upbringing where they're not burdened by the mundanity of the outside world. And at the same time, don't bring your child into my world because I don't care about your child. I chose not to have a child. So, I do genuinely want to talk about these films because they are two films that I think are at least worth talking about for two different reasons. So, as I was saying earlier, the first movie of our pairing is always the movie that stars someone or is made by someone who I really like and really should have seen this movie. Well, the first movie up is Troll. That is from 1986, the John Carl Buechler movie that stars Michael Moriarty. But interestingly, the reason why I even sat down to watch this was that again, I was getting VHS in for my store. One of the VHS that I got in was Troll, and on the VHS cover, Michael Moriarty's name is much more prominent. I have the Eureka release that has both Troll and Troll 2 on it, and I got that because I was like, well, everyone talks about Troll 2 as the worst movie ever. I should at least see it. Oh, it comes with Troll 1. Great, fantastic. So I got that Blu-ray a while ago and had it sitting on my shelf. I had no idea Michael Moriarty was in Troll. I am a huge Michael Moriarty fan. Absolutely huge. I think his work with Larry Cohen is absolutely fantastic. And I couldn't believe that he was in other genre film outside of like Larry Cohen stuff. So whenever I see Michael Moriarty's name, I'm like, oh, put that on a fucking list. So I came to Troll, even though, as I said, I've owned the Eureka disc for a while and never watched it. And I knew it was a John Carl Buechler movie, but I did not know that Michael Moriarty was in it. I got the VHS and was putting it out in my store and went, wait, Michael Moriarty's in Troll? So that's how I came to the movie, Matt. How about yourself?
So I thought I had seen this before because, I saw Troll 2, like you said, I like yourself, I watched it for the site however many years ago. And I thought I watched the first Troll to, sort of just to see it, even though the two aren't connected at all. But when I watched this, I realized I hadn't seen it before. I didn't remember any of what I was seeing in here, especially like Julia Louis-Dreyfus with her husband, Brad Hall, before they were married. I remember seeing him on Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes, and here he is in a younger version with a members-only jacket. I would have definitely remembered, Andy Travis from WKRP, Gary Sandy is the actor there. And of course, like you said, Michael Moriarty, I always loved him on Law and Order as well. He's a fun actor. So I realized very quickly that I hadn't seen this movie before, even though the concepts and some of the things that were in the movie I'd heard people talk about in places, but I'd never actually seen the film. So this is a first-time watch for me as well.
Yeah, I had no idea Julia Louis-Dreyfus was in it either. And it's always funny because it is remarkable how often you come across a horror movie or a genre movie or a B movie or whatever, exploitation movie, whatever you want to call it, that has a before they were famous actor in it. Almost every actor has done their time in horror movies or exploitation movies. And there are two types of people in the world. There are the Helen Hunts of the world, and there are the, sadly, because I do love her as a comedian, the Julia Louis-Dreyfus of the world. And what I mean by that is, when Helen Hunt was asked to come back for Trances 3, Helen Hunt came back for Trances 3. When Helen Hunt has been asked about Trances, she has only ever been happy and complimentary and proud of Trances. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, on the other hand, wants nothing whatsoever to do with Troll, much in the same way that Jennifer Aniston, another woman who I greatly admire and think is a fine actor, wants nothing to do with Leprechaun. I'm like, own up to that shit. Clooney is totally fine to admit that he did Return of the Killer Tomatoes. As he should be, by the way, because it's a great movie. And it's a fuck sight better than Red Surf, which Tarantino went on and on about as being Clooney's best early role. Red Surf is one of the worst fucking movies ever made. Ever. I've watched it and I've never wanted to gouge my eyes out more.
Right. Yeah, I wonder, because it's funny, now that the big one now, of course, is Sydney Sweeney, and she has one of those Lifetime The Wrong Daughter movie from 2018,
right?
And I wonder if it's going to be a similar, I feel like with her that she probably would be more likely to embrace that she did a movie like that.
Well, I don't know much about her, right? Yeah. I genuinely really don't. I believe she was from that Euphoria series that I heard a lot of noise about.
I haven't seen that one either. Yeah,
I've never seen it, but I've heard a lot of noise about it. If you hate the journey, you don't deserve where you've ended up. That's what I think. You should always love the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think unless it was a bad experience on the movie, that's one thing. But I mean, I don't think Julia Louis-Dreyfus had a bad experience. I mean, yes, I guess there's parts about making Troll probably that weren't the most fun, but yeah, I think because I heard Jay Leno brought it up on what time that she was, and she scowled at him, she just didn't, and it's like, all right, get over yourself, seriously, right. What's your, and now you're doing Thunderbolts. It's like, okay, so a Marvel movie, well, because yes, I get it, it's a bigger production, you're gonna get a huge paycheck for it, I'm sure, all that jazz, but it's like this movie Troll. I mean, yes, I'm gonna go see Thunderbolts in the theater. Hopefully, I'll enjoy myself. We'll see.
I don't know what that is, so I'm not even.
Oh, so Thunderbolts. It's a Marvel movie. It's got kind of the tangential baddies from like Winter Soldier. What is not Black Widow, but not her. Yelena Belova, whatever her character's name was, who's the sister of the Black Widow. She's in it.
Is that Florence Pugh?
Florence Pugh, yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. So those kind of characters, Taskmaster, Olga Kurylenko. So it's almost like their version of the Suicide Squad. That's what the movie's going to be. But Julia Louis-Dreyfus is in that movie, and it's okay, you're doing a Marvel movie, you can't frown on Troll anymore. That's it.
I'm with you on that, sir, and I agree with that assumption. Troll is as much a product of the machine that makes Avengers movies and Marvel movies as it is its own thing. So, Troll. It is baffling. I don't even know how to explain it. Other than there are trolls in a brownstone that slowly either kill people or turn them into wood nymphs.
Right.
Right? And the director, John Carl Buechler, is immortalized in this large portrait that humorously hangs over all the pictures because one of the women who lives in one of the apartments is a witch.
Right, June Lockhart from the old Lassie show.
And her now long dead wizard husband is portrayed by Buechler in a portrait. And Buechler, if you just Google John Carl Buechler, okay? Look at photographs of John Carl Buechler and then imagine an ornate portrait of that on your wall. It is both as glorious and hilarious in equal measure, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's an odd-looking dude. I mean, in the best way. I'm an odd-looking dude. But I mean, he in the best way. I love Buechler. I think Buechler should be heralded a lot more than he is, both as a special effects artist and a director. Because I think... The one that, look, Troll is a bizarre, bumpy, cheesy, weird ride. It just is.
Right, yes.
But it's not, accepting all of that, it's not a bad film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the kind of movie, so when it comes to bad movies or these sort of low end kind of deals, I always have these two categories where it's can I watch this with anybody or can I only watch this with certain people? And I would say that there's nothing in this that's so bad Yes, probably the most shocking thing is when Sonny Bono turns into Robert Zadar for a second before he turns into like a
It's
some
so
kind of like
weird that
moth or something.
Sonny
Yeah.
Bono undergoes like a big prosthetic transformation. It's hilarious.
Yeah, this is the kind of movie that you can watch with anybody.
Right.
There's nothing so horrible in it, right? There's no, yes, I guess the teen son, he gets thrown against the wall by the daughter, but it's the daughter doing it, even though the daughter's taken over by the troll. That's like maybe the most rough thing that you see in the movie is that the poor kid gets thrown against the wall by his sister.
Yeah,
But
they tore a guy's heart out in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Right.
And I watched that at school on a bed sheet in the music room when we couldn't go out and play sports because it was raining.
Right.
And they played Temple of Doom, and all of us at like the age of 7 were just like, oh, he just tore a guy's heart out. I guess that's something that we've just seen, and we all are now scarred for the rest of our life on it.
Exactly.
By the way, here's Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder. Halfway through, there will be an absolutely surreal fucking ayahuasca trip that'll feature the actual decapitation of a chicken. In the middle of a kid's movie. Oh, and fucking spooky bugs crawling over ugly men's eyes. Right. It's like some kind of fucking Salvador Dali. I'm honestly wouldn't have been surprised if in the middle of that dream sequence, as they're going through the tunnel in the boat in Willy Wonka, that you hadn't seen on Chien Andalou and had a fucking eyelid cut open with a razor blade. That would not have surprised me because it was some Salvador Dali sick and twisted shit. We watched that as kids. There is nothing in Troll that comes close to the horrifying nature of that boat ride.
Well, the other thing is that no kids are murdered in Troll, right? Right, like Willy Wonka, you've got kids being murdered. It's like I get it that they and no amount of like being brats is worth being murdered, being killed. I think.
I don't know. Some of them were really bad, man.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yes, yeah, but I think like that's there's
they don't get murdered. They get deformed, and then they are promised that they will be put back together. So one gets shrunk, one gets turned into a giant blueberry, and one gets sucked up a chocolate pipe.
Right.
Which sounds like a gay porn, and it could possibly. You get sucked up a chocolate pipe.
Right.
I used to play bass for Sucked Up a Chocolate Pipe. They were a punk band out of Wisconsin.
Right.
But no, I think... Okay, and also we have to mention that Michael Moriarty goes down along with the wonderful Crispin Glover in Friday the 13th Part 4 as some of the best dancing in a horror/creature feature ever seen until the aforementioned Friday the 13th Part 4 with Crispin Glover, where it truly is a body convulsion pie of glorious whipness. It's such a... What was I saying before? It's such a glorious body convulsion, pie in the back of the freezer, just waiting to get heated up again every single year. Whereas... the Michael Moriarty dancing, that's out of some left field right there. That is totally cockeyed, right?
Well, and I love that you've got Shelley Hack, who was one of the later Charlie's Angels, who has to make sense of this Moriarty dancing, right? And it's just like, there's a sense of like, the actor's studio.
Wait. We have to make sense.
Right.
Moriarty's dancing.
Right. It's like like there you are, react to Moriarty's dancing, and she's like, I don't know how to do it. It's like kind of like, speaking of Sydney Sweeney, where it was Dakota Johnson was in Madam Web, and she's like, I don't know how to act with a green screen. I've never had to do this before. Like,
well, she doesn't know how to act anyway, but yes.
Right, exactly. But yeah, Shelley Hack's like, I've never had to act. Respond to a Moriarty before. Like this never happened in Charlie's Angels.
No, we've no idea. I mean, and look, make no mistake, Moriarty just did that, and Beekler kept the camera rolling. Yeah. That was just off the top of Moriarty's insane head.
Right.
I would refer people to the island of It's Alive, which is It's Alive 3, where they're on the boat going to the aforementioned island, and out of nowhere, Moriarty starts a sing-along of Over the Sea to Sky, the old Scottish sea shanty. And suddenly, Larry Cohen is filming the entire boat singing this sea shanty. You know, Moriarty just did that. Moriarty was just on the boat and started singing over the sea to sky. Like he just started singing it. Yeah. Oh, the boy that's born to be king, or whatever it is, right? So he's singing this like sea shanty, and everyone just starts joining in. And you can almost see people like looking back and then looking at the camera almost to be like, are we doing this? Oh, we're fucking doing this. Moriarty's just starting a fucking impulsive sea shanty, and we're all going along with it. Just deal with it. Yeah. I feel like the dancing in this film very much the same way, where he's like, Beekler, put a camera in the corner, high angle, pointed down at me. I'm about to do some body popping like you wouldn't believe.
Well, because I think part of it is the outfit, right? I mean, it's a very dad outfit, right? It's a sweater over the button-up shirt.
Yeah, it's dad to the power of 10.
Slacks. Yeah. And again, like the way Shelley Hack's responding to it, it's like she didn't see this in the script and prepared for it at all. You know, she's just like...
Right, because if they've been together 20 years, and when he was a younger man, he was a, punk, ska, head-banging, Dr. Martin boots-wearing, down at CGBG's type person.
Yeah.
Great. But she would know that. So when she saw him convulsing or trying to lay an egg or whatever you call the dancing that Moriarty is doing in this movie, whatever you call it, and I call it glorious. I call it triumphant. It is triumphant dancing is what it is. But whatever you call it, you wouldn't be surprised if that's who he was. However, if he had been button-down accountant with his V-neck sweaters and his button-down shirts and his plaid slacks and his dad bod and everything else going on, if he'd just been Mr. Dad and then suddenly out of nowhere he's putting on punk records and thrusting his hips all over the living room like a skunk in heat, then it would be baffling to me. I'd be like, wait, what just happened? I know our daughter's possessed by a troll. Let me deal with that later. What I want to deal with right now is what is this dancing and why is it happening? Because you either know about it, you're in your relationship, you've either been with each other long enough that you know about it, that you know it's something he has in his arsenal that he might whip out at any time, right? Or you don't know about it and it's a new thing that he's trying out.
Yeah.
I feel like the script did not answer either of these two questions.
No. And it's the perfect kind of interlude to the crazy troll stuff that's going on.
Right, because the trolls are basically turning every apartment into a woodland.
Yes, yeah. With these little, like, claymation kind of stop animation trolls that are just, kind of appearing out of nowhere. And
well, of course, Beekler is the chap that most people will know as the man behind the Ghoulies. Yeah. And so if you get somewhat cheap thrills from the Charles Band Ghoulies franchise that features fairly inanimate rubber puppets of not very realistic demons, if you want to see that, but on a pushed to the nth degree, where every apartment in a fairly sizable brownstone building is overtaken by woodland nymphs and small immovable rubber puppets, then Troll, mixed with what the fuck Moriarty dancing that just comes out of nowhere. Doesn't even come out of left field. Left field's been bypassed. He's bypassed left field, and he's just come up through a hole in the stage that he cut himself using a tiny little blade while everyone else was singing and dancing. He's cut his own hole in the stage and just burst through it with Moriarty dancing. And it's a glorious thing that he did, and we have it on film.
Yes, because with all the craziness that's going on in Troll, you wouldn't think that it's almost like Moriarty's like, I've got to do something crazier than the crazy. Right. It's like, like you said, like you've got these woodland, like these brownstone apartments being turned into like these woodland, creatures. You're getting, Sonny Bono is getting off by a troll.
Sonny Bono is giving birth to like an alien troll out of his forearm.
Right.
And then turning into a giant pupa, some kind of bug pupa, kind of butt-faced sort of. I mean, it is the art. if Charles Band had never made Troll, and I have to look it up because I want to know what came first, Troll or Puppet Master. I was right, and I know I'm right. So Troll was 86, Puppet Master is 89.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Ghoulies comes before. So we can certainly say that without John Carl Buechler, Charles Band's fascination for tiny weird things taking over a place and or killing people and or turning people into confectionery in the case of Ginger Dead Man,
right? Yeah.
Where Gary Busey becomes a gingerbread man. See what they did there?
Yeah.
Anyway, Charles Band would ride on the coattails of Ghoulies and Troll into the oblivion. I mean, he even took Tim Thomerson from the Trancers franchise and went, I wonder what would happen if Tim Thomerson was exactly the same character but small. How about we call him Doll Man?
Right.
Right?
Have Albert Pyun direct it, of all people.
Of course. Well, you have to get Pyun in there. Like, you have to. It's de rigueur. But yeah, so without Ghoulies, you don't get Troll. And then without Troll, I don't think you get Puppet Master.
Yeah. No, I agree. Which is, I think is another good point, right? Is that these movies sort of beget this. And so, again, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was too cool for this stuff. But I think from, like you talk about this sort of this movement amongst horror fans to kind of reclaim.
Yeah, I mean,
the month of
Ghoulies
October
2 is just about to get a 4K fucking Blu-ray release. So you're like, well, people are still fucking watching the Ghoulies franchise. You know what I mean? So let's not shit. Troll itself, as I said, got a really nice double disc set from Eureka. Both of them remastered and cleaned up and everything like that. So you can see Michael Moriarty right now, at least in 1080p. Right. Dancing like I mean, he epitomizes whirling dervish, I think. I mean, he really is. And look, I think that what I love about these Empire productions of Charles Band that were filmed in Italy and blah, 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 blah. This era that Trancers comes out of and Reanimator, Castle Freak, From Beyond, those Stuart Gordon movies come out of it. The Puppet Master franchise comes out of it, the Ghoulie franchise, etc., etc. It's a very fertile time for these guys of the movies that they're putting together. And what I like about them is that they're sort of stream of consciousness, special effects heavy, kind of comic horror weird films that you can't really put into a box. Because on one hand, you could say, well, Troll isn't really a horror film. I know that he originally thought about it as, the troll would actually be stalking people and slashing them. Yeah. Sort of more like a Leprechaun type movie. But instead, that's not really what happens. It's more that the troll is trying to do some magic to take over the apartment building and get rid of the witch, who, am I right, used to be married to the troll when the troll was human, or the troll was at least humanoid, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so it's all to do with that, and really though, it is just an excuse to be like, oh, what's happening in Sonny Bono's apartment? Oh, they're attacking and turning them into forest and trees and jungles and whatever, and then there's little kid goblin troll things running around and blah 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 blah. Oh, what's happening in Julia Louis-Dreyfus's apartment? Oh, she's turned into a wood nymph and she's like tempting her boyfriend into a, for him to steal his soul or whatever, and blah 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 blah. Like you go from apartment to apartment to apartment to apartment, kind of learning all these different stories, and that takes up a lot of the running time. The only kind of consistent through line is the family, Michael Moriarty's family. Most of all, the son's relationship with the witch, right?
Right. Well, which is a little bit weird in and of itself, but I guess, the son just sort of recognizes that he senses that she's a positive force, but
he also knows that his sister is not his sister.
Right. Well, that's true too, right? Because he especially realizes that when he watches a movie about alien abductions, which I think has Charles Band. Like, it's supposed to look like a 50s movie.
Yes, but it's made specially, yes, and it has Charles Band in it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so, like you said, he's kind of venturing over to her house, and then we see that little mushroom character guy that, like, is watching her paint or something like that.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing. And she keeps putting like a lampshade on him.
Right.
But
yeah.
By the way, so here is a thing about this movie, a controversy about this movie, a conspiracy theory. So the main character in this movie is called Harry Potter.
Yes. Yeah.
And there is a lot about the witch's apartment, the creatures that are in the witch's apartment, the singing mushroom character, the trolls and goblins and jungles and various other things that are very Harry Potter-esque. And J.K. Rowling claims to this day, left, right, up, down, foolish fucking turf that she is, she claims that she's never even seen trolls, she had no idea, blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry, when you put the name Harry Potter and then that singing mushroom creature together, it's fucking Harry Potter. I don't care what else. She watched this movie.
Yes.
Now, she already ripped off, I already thought she was a rip-off of Terry Gilliam and a rip-off of Roald Dahl and a rip-off. I mean, she rips everybody off. When Harry Potter first came out and I read the first book, which is the only book I've ever read of any of the Harry Potters, I was like, well, this is just fucking Douglas Adams, Terry Gilliam, and fucking the worst witch and Roald Dahl. Like, I mean, right off the bat, the aunt and uncle are like disgusting caricatures. Harry is an orphan. They torture him. He doesn't get to be his own. Like, read every Roald Dahl book. Every Roald Dahl book. They have the evil fucking uncle and aunts, or the fucking and he's an orphan, and he's this. And I mean, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the other one's David Copperfield, right? I mean,
right. Yes, David it goes back to Charles Dickens. It goes back way back. The whole orphan trope is a trope in literature. But if you are reading Harry Potter and you're reading Roald Dahl, it's that sense of humor, it's that sensibility, it's that, and everyone just like Harry Potter was to me like the Princess Diana's death. Everyone was like lining up to midnight to fucking buy a Harry Potter book. Or the morning after Diana's death, people were lining the fucking mall in the lead up to Buckingham Palace, fucking weeping and waving their hands around and, oh, this is the people's princess and fucking blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what happened to the world? What happened to the world? Yeah. Seriously, did no one read Harry Potter and go, oh my God, this is one of the most derivative, badly written kids' books ever? No, because then Twilight came out and everyone assumed that was fucking literature.
Right. Well, because, I think with the Roald Dahl thing, you make a great point, because I of course, read those books, like, 4th, 5th grade, they were just, you had to read Roald Dahl. If you read, but I think there were a lot of people, especially like our age, that, especially in America, who didn't read that stuff, right? They weren't reading anything at that time, unless they had to read it for, reading period or whatever. And then, like, when they got older and suddenly this Harry Potter stuff comes out and they read it, it's like, well, they'd never heard of, they knew who Roald Dahl was, but they'd never read any of his stuff. I mean, I remember reading tons of his, like, again, like you said, it was like kind of, it was like every 4th, 5th grade, whatever class had those books on the shelf. And so it's like, okay, I want to read something. I'm going to pull one of those books off the shelf. But I think there were enough people that their first like encounter with reading was Harry Potter. Like, they didn't really read anything before that. So they wouldn't have known the Roald Dahl connection. They wouldn't have known David Copperfield or anything.
Make no mistake that J.K. Rowling is the Quentin Tarantino of authors. And make no mistake that Quentin Tarantino, based on who he's been around in Hollywood, is probably the J.K. Rowling of Hollywood. And I'll leave it at that. Anyway.
Yes, that's a good point.
Anyway, I hated Harry Potter before it was trendy. I hated Harry Potter the first night the second book went on sale.
I've never read them. The only time, so there's this a bookstore in Boston. I don't know if it's still there, but it had books in foreign languages, and I was minoring in German at the time, and so I was down there in Boston, and I had a choice between that one and Charlotte's Web in German, and I thought, well, I'll do the Harry Potter book in German. It was a Kammer des Schreckens, which is a Chamber of Secrets. I thought I'll do the Harry Potter one because I've never read it, and I realized that. Actually, no, I should have done the Charlotte's Web, because when I did the Harry Potter, when I started trying to read it, I couldn't figure out what was German and what was made up shit for like wizardry stuff.
Right,
so,
exactly. Well, what was good about that was that the Germans love it when the youth have structure, and when the youth have to participate in physical activity. So Harry kind of being drafted for Quidditch, and having a forced structure at Hogwarts, not being allowed to go outside the walls. Befriending large, hearty men who drink flagons of ale with enormous beards. It's a very German. There's a lot of German stuff in Harry Potter. So they're okay with it. I mean, they kind of look at Hogwarts as sort of an extension of the Hitler Youth. You know what I mean? They're like, let us put all the children in the shorts and make them run with the knees pointing highwards, and they will keep... that's the Germans like, I love it. Look at all of them wearing uniforms. Yeah, children should be in uniforms. I love it. Yeah, it's fantastic. That's what they're like. Hagrid. Yes, I am Hagrid. This is my family name. The Germans love all that shit. Like, no, run faster, Harry. Yes, that is much better. Schnell. Yeah. Anyway, it's never too late to take the piss out of the Germans. Troll is 110% an inspiration for Harry Potter, and J.K. Rowling is a lying fuckknuckle. Yes.
Well, you know what I think the thing is with this movie that I like also, with John Carl Buechler, he's kind of in that category of like a Frank Henenlotter. These guys that were born in the early 50s who grew up watching, the 50s schlock horror movies, whether it was in the movie theater, and like, in the Grindhouse theaters in New York City, or if it was on TV, on the weekends. And it's kind of the MST3K guys when they were kind of also inspired by that kind of thing. They're all around that same age. I think Buechler was born in 52. I think Henenlotter's around that 51, 52. And they bring this sensibility to these movies that there's just so far out there. But Troll can fit right in perfectly with a Frankenhooker or, a basket case. It's that, Ghoulies is another one, of course, the sensibilities that these guys brought to this kind of stuff. I just love it. This is kind of my favorite kind of horror or, this kind of thing. I've always loved this mindset.
Yeah, I just like the idea that we used to make movies for no other reason other than to have like weird little rubber creatures in them that would just do nondescript, slightly violent, slightly weird shit to people for nothing other than, like, maybe the trolls want a little part of the world as well. Like, maybe they don't want to be banished to whatever netherworld they're forced to live in. Maybe they do want to can we just have this brownstone? Like, maybe we could just have this brownstone. There's only 3 or 4 people that need to either die, be turned into wood nymphs, turn into a pupa, or whatever it is. It's only 3 or 4 people, and most of those people are terrible, terrible, horrible people.
Right.
So can we have this? Can we just have this building? And then the witch is like, no, you can't have the building. But I tell you what, this was my review when I put it up on Letterboxd. I give it 4 stars, Matt. And I said, let me explain. The 4 stars are for 2 things. 1, the film. It's a chaotic, weird, beautiful, strange, unexpected, fucking nuts, fever dream full of latex rubber, flora, and fauna. And then I said, number 2, the behind-the-scenes crew. While watching the extensive making-of, filled with ever-increasingly charming, quirky, nerdy, and delightful people, I just fell in love with the crew. They are a funny, self-depreciating, quick-witted, odd, facial tic-driven bunch, and they are absolutely wonderful in every way. So I have the Eureka set, and as I said, there's quite a extensive making-of. Everybody in Buechler's crew, because Buechler had a SFX company before he became a director, and they were all from his crew. With each one, and they interview them. They interview the stop motion guy, they interview the rubber latex guy, they interview the puppeteers, they interview a lot of people who made the armatures and the animatronics and various other things. They interview like everybody, and as it kind of goes down the list of all the people they're interviewing, they become more and more, like, as I said, like just charmingly nerdy, self-depreciating, kind of talking to the chest, make a little wry comment about themselves. Just like really lovely, awkward, weird people, and I love awkward, weird people. They just make me happy. And the fact that Buechler himself, a lunatic with, bright blonde hair and a dark black beard, both of which had died, like both his hair and his beard have both died. And he's this big portly guy who's kind of rocking a skullet because he's losing his hair at the front. But much like the troll in Troll, or even the ghoulies in Ghoulies, he comes across as a jolly, benevolent weirdo. You know what I mean? Clearly a weirdo. Like, you look at Buechler and you're like, okay, there's a couple of lunch rolls short of a full bread basket. And in the best way. In the way that a lot of outsider artists and weird rubber animatronic puppet making men look. That's absolutely fine. I don't mind it. But when you meet his crew on the making of, I threw any objectivity out the window. I just said, Troll gets 4 stars because these people are fucking beautiful.
So I didn't see that part of it because I watched this on Tubi, but again, these movies, they just work for me. I think, I put this kind of in the similar, 3.5, 4-star category as well. I think it's, again, it fits like with a Frankenhooker or Basket Case, trying to think of some other ones that kind of fit in that category. I mean, some of the Fred Olen Ray or Wynorski movies, like Wynorski's Return of the Swamp Thing, or Revenge of the, whichever it was, Return of the Swamp Thing. Yeah. I mean, that's, and again, they're all around the same age. They all kind of grew up in the same environment of movies and influences. And they created this stuff that, again, like you said, kind of has this domino effect that now, if we get into the 90s.
Well, because they either come out of the Corman School or the band school, and both schools are known for, keeping the effects as low budget as possible, and also stretching a dollar way further than it will go. Yeah. And there's also there's something interesting that happens in the brain when you're watching a movie like this. Because you can watch it 2 ways. You can either buy into the troll. You go, well, this is the troll. This is the thing that I'm looking at that's going to be killing people or sucking their souls or whatever it's going to be doing. This is the troll. And it's as real to me as Warwick Davis in The Leprechaun. Like, I have to buy into it fully. Or you watch it and you go, oh, isn't it cool? Someone built this and designed this and animated it or puppeteered it or whatever it is. Either way you look at it, whether you fully suspend disbelief or whether you look at it with an objective eye, either way, it succeeds because either way it's charming. If you buy wholeheartedly into it, it's this funny little quirky tale of this mad little dwarf who's taken over this little girl who, used to be married to this witch and blah, 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 blah. And it's just a fun, like, weird romp where he's kind of, he's killing people or whatever, but he's also turning them into wood nymphs, and he's just having fun. He's getting the band back together, and you can't begrudge him that,
right?
Because they were probably here before us. You know what I mean? The trolls are probably here before us. They're the indigenous peoples, and we should probably just let them have their little troll parties. Who are we to say you can't have a lily pad or two, some vines, and a nice little forest glade for you to hang out in? Why would we deny the trolls that, Matt? Right. I wouldn't.
Yes. No.
If I was head of Parks and Rec.
Like you said, you can kind of work this either way. Like you said, I mean, and to be honest, I get, from J.K. Rowling's standpoint, right, is that I think one of the things we're capable of doing that like Louis-Dreyfus can't do or J.K. Rowling can't do is say, I like this. I have fun with this. Right. Like, J.K. Rowling probably enjoyed watching this movie. She probably liked it, but she didn't want anybody to know that she saw this.
Right.
It's probably the way that, like, younger people, in the
like Tarantino didn't want anyone to know that or go and watch City on Fire. And then we all did and went, oh, you just ripped this off.
Yeah, right, okay, exactly. Yeah. It's like, she was probably sneaking Troll the way that, like, kids in the 80s would be sneaking porn movies or whatever from the video store, Yeah. I don't want anybody to know that I'm watching Troll. I can't let anybody, realize this. And then she starts jotting everything down and like, oh, I've, creating this whole thing worth $1 billion out of it.
Well, she was probably confused by the whole thing. She probably wanted to, interview the trolls and ask each of them their gender and pronouns just to make sure that they conform to whatever mad fucking bananas restrictive view of humanity. We're just organisms rowling.
Yes.
We can do what we want to do, and it doesn't fucking affect you, and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And
there's been trans people since well before. As long as there's been humans, there's been trans people. So,
and the existence of trans people does not negate the existence of womanhood or femininity or feminism or whatever. Because I know lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of women who are all being very empowered, business owners and family heads of families and whatever, who are fantastic, wonderful women. Not one of them is threatened by a single trans performer and or drag act. So stop your... If women en masse, like the Me Too era, if women en masse were saying, actually, this is hampering our ability to use our bathroom or the ability for us to get healthcare or the ability to get whatever, that would be fine. But they're not. They're not doing that, so it's fine. And it's not for me to say either way, but it's also not for J.K. Rowling to say. Troll I loved. 4 stars. The people behind it were absolutely charming. Michael Moriarty was given free rein to be as fucking insane as he wanted to be, and he took full hip thrusting advantage of that. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't amount to a whole hill of beans, but it's sort of charming and fun while it's on. That's what I would say.
Yeah. This is a great, like, whoever is in your group that want to watch a low budget, 80s movie, if you're having a movie night, or if you're yourself and you're just looking for something that's going to be fun and, kind of to relax to kind of just watch a movie, this is a great one. But this is a very versatile kind of movie in that sense, that it's a low budget, bad movie that anybody can watch.
Right. And anyone can enjoy. And it's good to have these entry films because if you have a kid who wants to get into alternative programming or whatever you want to call it, then this is a good entry way. Yeah. Because there's nothing in this that isn't in The Neverending Story, including the lead actor, and or in Labyrinth, or in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, or Howard the Duck, or you name your like kinder trauma. Return to Oz, the fucking crazy Wheeler guys in Return to Oz, like you name your kinder trauma, and they've all gone through it before they've got to Troll, so I wouldn't get too worried about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And where do you, as a direct-to-video connoisseur, where do you fall on Full Moon or Empire or any of those kind of films? I know you more err on the side of like action or adventure or sci-fi or whatever, but considering Full Moon is one of the, with Corman and Troma, it's one of the sort of top 3 direct-to-video distributors. Really, they don't. None of them are in cinemas anymore. Like, where do they sit in your film watching canon?
Well, so I mean, hugely influential for me. I think whether it was Full Moon, Troma, those were Corman stuff. The stuff I watched a lot growing up. What I've talked about, on my site was that when I started the site, I was planning to have more Full Moon, just like I was planning to have more Troma, all of that. But what happened was, I think the ecosystem for horror is much bigger. There are a lot more horror blogs out there.
Right.
Whereas for low budget action from the 80s and 90s, there weren't a lot of people doing that. And that's where the engagement started to come from. And at that time with blogs, it was like a lot of commenters. And the commenters would be like, oh, do this movie, do that one. So it was like, doing Dolph Lundgren movies, doing, Jean-Claude Van Damme or something. Oh no, do some Gary Daniels, do some David Bradley, or and so the stuff like the Charles Band stuff, the Troma stuff that I thought were going to be hallmarks of the site, kind of got pushed to the side a little bit, not intentionally, but just sort of the way it worked out. So I'd always planned on doing more of this kind of stuff on the site, and because this is stuff I've always really loved, and I think, like you said, when it comes to DTV. Distributors, they're one of the best. I mean, one of the things right now is that the action.
Well, they invented Laserdisc and DVD extras. Like they did. Like,
yes.
So no, he basically invented like this whole idea of having extra features on stuff, because even as early as his VHS days, he was putting Video Zone kind of 10-minute EPK footage, which is electronic press kit for people who don't know, EPK footage on his VHS. So you would finish the VHS, there'd be an extra 10, 15-minute short making of. And I believe he was the first distributor to start doing that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because I mean they were one of the first direct to video overall. Like they were one of the first people putting out stuff that was strictly for the video store.
Right.
Yeah, so they kind of in the early '80s they pioneered that market. And
well,
so
when you look at the stuff that he produced, again, we've made this joke before about like, has anyone ever had a run of 4 films like this
right, yeah.
before? But when I look at okay, we'll take a few jumps here because there are a couple of years in between these films. But Tourist Trap, Parasite, Metal Storm: The Destruction of Jared Sin, The Alchemist, The Dungeon Master, Ghoulies, Trancers, Walking the Edge, Zone Troopers, Troll, Eliminators, TerrorVision, Crawl Space, From Beyond, Dolls. All these movies. I'm not naming anything that isn't being discussed on 1,000 indie podcasts right now. These movies are still, I'm not naming like movies that no one's ever heard of, even if they are a little sort of C tier or D tier. They are movies that people are writing about all the time. These are movies that have survived 35 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, these are movies that if you go to the IMDb pages, you're going to see, 40 some odd at least critic reviews, maybe more. So maybe in the hundreds for some of them, over 100 for some of them. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like these are movies. I mean, I think I've reviewed like 4 or 5 out of that list that you had there. I think most sites have, like you said, they've covered a lot. So yeah, and I mean, like there wasn't a name that you mentioned there that I was like I hadn't at least heard of.
Right. If you're a fan of Stuart Gordon or H.P. Lovecraft, you've got Charles Band to thank. Like,
yes,
he was the one that got those, whether it's Reanimator or From Beyond or later films like even Dagon, which I don't think is a Charles Band production, but Stuart Gordon was certainly filming on Charles Band's property in Italy, where or Romania. They owned a couple of studios. He owned a studio in Italy, but I think he also owned a castle and some other stuff in Romania that he used to film stuff at as well. But no, he's been involved in so much that we take for granted, just in the way that Roger Corman was, and in the way that to some extent we're now noticing that Lloyd Kaufman has as well, with the people like James Gunn and stuff coming out, the next wave of trauma people now making it in Hollywood. And I think that again, it's not the narrative that Hollywood would have you believe, or the people, or the E Network, or anyone who is apparently dissecting pop culture with a razor blade. They seem to be missing that almost everything that we know and love, and even the things that are still coming out to this day. Like I said, James Gunn is the head of DC now.
Yes.
Like, he wrote Tromeo and Juliet. Like, let's not, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's where we're at now. Like the geeks have definitely inherited the earth.
Yeah. No, you're exactly correct. And I mean, granted, it happened before, right? It happened in the 70s with these auteur directors who were working under Corman, and then, kind of creating a new Hollywood in the 70s, and they start with Corman. It's a similar thing that we're seeing now, like you said, with like someone like a James Gunn. I mean, Darren Aronofsky does Soldier Boys. He's like a second unit director on Soldier Boys, the, Michael Dudikoff movie. It's like, these names, they kind of start in that place, but like, they're kind of, getting started here where the actors, like you talked about, it's an interesting piece because it's like, it's almost like this untold, like you said, untold Hollywood kind of thing where like, nobody's really talking about that element. Like the E's not going to talk about that, right? They're going to talk about like the, whatever the breakout role was for that person in mainstream movies. They aren't going to talk about the other stuff that they were doing. If they do, it's going to be with a jaundiced eye. Well,
yeah, exactly. And I always think back to like J.J. Abrams did music cues on Night Beast, which if you want low budget, that's even less than Charles Band ever had. Troma distributed Night Beast, but they paid nothing for the production of Night Beast. But J.J. Abrams, who was like 11 or 12 at the time, was like, can I send you some synth tracks that I've been working on? And, I would have loved to have seen J.J. Abrams going the way of Carpenter and scoring his own movies if he is if he has some synth background, but apparently not. I also would have loved to have seen J.J. Abrams putting George Stover even in cameo roles in Hollywood movies. So James Gunn at least throws Uncle Lloydie a bone every so often and puts him in a movie, gets him a good paycheck, or he puts Nathan Fillion in a movie, or Michael Rooker has a career in part to James Gunn's use of him in various different films and
Guardians
things.
of the Galaxy, yeah.
But even before that, I think he's in a couple of other earlier James Gunn films and things. So I think that's the story we should continue to be telling. Anyway, so and Charles Band has been at the forefront of that his entire career, and we have him to thank for Troll. But we also have the wonderful John Carl Bigelow, who I believe developed the script first of all and actually brought it to Charles Band. I believe he'd had Troll in his back pocket even before Ghoulies. Because I think in Ghoulies he was just... Does he direct Ghoulies or does he just do the special effects for Ghoulies?
That's a good question. Let's see what it has for his directing work. But he might be right that...
Of course,
so Ghoulies Go to College he directed. But actually Troll is his second movie. Dungeon Master, he does one segment on there. So Troll is his first feature film that he directed.
Right, exactly. So he doesn't direct Ghoulies. He just does the special effects to Ghoulies. He also worked on as makeup department for Reanimator. So, and so Bakler, I think, does a fantastic job, both with the special effects and the directing. And I like to see that he kind of goes on to do bigger and better things after this to some extent. And I think dies way too young, right?
Oh, yeah. He was born in 1952. He's the same age as my dad. Died in 2019. Yeah, so 62, 67 is not that old, So.
Yeah, 66 he was when he died.
66.
He's born in June and died in March, so that's why. So almost 67, but still, that's entirely too young, and I would have liked to have seen what Buchler would have done in his older age. But I like Troll, I like Charles Band. I want to celebrate that whenever we can. And so, unless you have any other closing comments on Troll, we will move over to a completely different beast of a completely different color, Delta Heat from 1992. Do you need a break? Do you need anything, or should we just keep going?
No, I'm ready to go. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So Delta Heat. What can we say about Delta Heat that hasn't already been said by 10 user reviews on IMDb? This is not a well-known film. It's not a well-regarded film. It's just a film. It's one of those things that littered the late 80s, early 90s as well, Matt. I mean, I feel like Delta Heat is square in your ballpark. I feel like we should hand the reins over to you a little bit. But yeah.
Well, it's funny. So we had talked about when you mentioned this one, I was like, I thought I had seen this before. So what I had seen, this aired on TV in the 90s, and the only scene I remember, and it might be the only scene I saw, it might have been I tuned in, was like, what's this with Anthony Edwards? And I turned it off, is that scene in the retirement home or the nursing home or whatever, where the young woman, her dad, who is like the drug dealer, we find out that he's still alive and he's like all burned or whatever. And it's just like this big rubber dummy in a wheelchair that's supposed to be like somebody that's like burned in like a vegetable or something like that. And I just remember Anthony Edwards saying the exact line I heard him say in this movie, "How long has he been like this?" And I just remembered that. And then I cut to commercial, and I just turned the channel and watched something else. So that's all I had seen of this movie. But I was like, it's got to be the same movie. And sure enough, when that scene happened, I was like, okay, it's the same movie. But it is a fascinating one because, I mean, you got Lance Henriksen, who usually plays a baddie in things, and they kind of try to twist it in that way that maybe he is the baddie. The Anthony Edwards piece, like we're so used to like actors like like a Wincott or even a David Bradley or somebody who's going to be the detective who comes in, even like maybe a David Keith or somebody like that who's like the gruff detective. To have it be Anthony Edwards from Revenge of the Nerds, and
it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. It's
hair, the outfits. It's just
The problem with Delta Heat is also the thing that makes it its most entertaining, which is Anthony Edwards. So. He is, Anthony Edwards is sort of good at two or three things. One of which is sort of being a lovable, harmless doofus in Revenge of the Nerds. One of them is being the lovable doofus but put upon expert doctor in ER.
Right.
And one of them is the set in his ways, very kind of plain-spoken and mild-mannered detective in Zodiac. Those are kind of like the three quintessential movies for Anthony Edwards. What we don't expect Anthony Edwards to be is a blonde, mulleted, pimp suit wearing, silken shirt loving, earring having Los Angeles detective in the hot, sweaty city of Louisiana.
Yeah.
Having not very fun fights, badinage, and banter with a incredibly hilarious, greasy-haired, swamp rat type character of Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
Lance Henriksen, who's taking every opportunity, by the way, to chew, or at least at the very, at least at the lesser end of the spectrum, lick the sweaty scenery of this movie like his lunch depended on it. He is everything to love about this film and then some. Like Henriksen, if this was sort of like, if they had miscast Henriksen, because Henriksen is perfectly cast. Perfectly. Anthony Edwards is horribly miscast, but he's miscast almost to the point where it comes back around to being well cast again. He's right on that edge, right?
Well, because the other thing, too, is that part of the reason why Lance Henriksen makes the movie is Lance Henriksen sells Anthony Edwards in this movie. Like, every scene that he's acting in with Anthony Edwards, he's selling the fact that, like, Anthony Edwards is this LA cop.
Right.
And which it's like, I think it's what makes an actor in a schlock film good, you know, is that you got to sell every scene.
But this is my thing is, you know, it's 1992, right? So we've had our fair share of wisecracking cops or journalists, whether it's Fletch or Axel F or whoever it is, right? We've had or John McClane, right?
Yeah.
We've had our fair share of sort of wise. I've never seen. I wouldn't know about LA in 1992, but were they all wearing like silk shirts and off the peg JCPenney, olive green to tan suits and walking around with blonde mullets and earrings? Like, was that because it didn't scream LA to me? It screamed like cheese ball New York investor in the 80s. That's what it screamed to me. Or you know, down and out pimp.
Yeah, I mean, one of the suits is like an orange. I don't know what you call that, like a toasted mango, maybe. What was? Yeah, like you said. Yeah, that was like you said, like the Wall Street guy, right? Like, let's do lunch character.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's like this whole trope of like almost like this like Crocodile Dundee kind of thing where it's like, let's take new LA cop guy who like wears kimonos and, you know, has these suits and everything, and let's just throw him through like fish guts or mud or swamp stuff. Yeah. Let's just do all that kind of stuff to him. Let's just make him as gross as possible.
Yeah. So you know how the old trope is, if one of your detectives has a classic car, then before the end of the movie, that classic car is getting trashed. It just is. That's the rule of the movies. If one of your detectives has something that they love, their house or a classic car or whatever the writer thinks makes them a little human. Oh, yeah, okay, he goes out and kills bad guys, but he also waxes the hood of an old Bentley that he made out of cereal boxes in the 70s, and he's been massaging and wanking over ever since. But, you know, writers love that shit. They love giving people, like, you know, different vintage cars. Invariably, there's going to be a car wreck. Invariably, his partner's going to be driving, not him.
Right.
And his partner, not caring about the car as much as he does, but only caring about getting the bad guy, is going to drive this car into walls, jump this car over like bollards, crash this car into other cars, and every time it's going to cut to the guy who's been lovingly restoring this car for 30 years going, no, and like whatever in the passenger seat, right? This is the trope we've seen in 1,000 movies. One of a very good example of which is in one of my favorite under the radar movies with Dan Aykroyd and Gene Hackman in it. What a pairing. I don't know who wrote that up. And that's Loose Cannons from 1990, where Gene Hackman has like a Wagoneer with wood on the side of it or whatever. And of course, Dan Aykroyd, in the midst of a car chase, has one of his schizophrenic panics and drives the car along like a brick wall, destroying all the wood and fucking up the paintwork. And Gene Hackman's just like, no, oh, my car, or whatever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dan Aykroyd's doing funny voices and jumping potholes and stuff. By the way, I love Loose Cannons. Everyone hates it, but I fucking love that movie. But Delta Heat, yeah, I couldn't get a grip on Anthony Edwards at all. I couldn't even put him in the zeitgeist of the times. Like, I just couldn't. I don't know. Where did this come from, Matt? What were they trying? What were they going for that I'm not understanding?
No, I was trying to figure out like what this LA was. I mean, the closest thing I could come to his LA was like maybe like David Shark Freilich in a PM flick, like as like third,
right?
You know, like
third goon
grunt
from the left,
who gets like roundhouse kicked by, you know, Gary Daniels off of a banister or something like that. Like,
yeah, I have to say, like in PM Entertainment, there's a lot of, in order to denote wealth, especially at the early 90s, silk shirts were a big, like silk pattern shirts denoted wealth. Yeah. But they also denoted, you know, cheesy Italian mobster or tech bro or finance bro.
Yeah.
I don't remember it ever. Like LA Cops to me is like jeans, a t-shirt, and like a Letterman jacket. Like that's like LA Cops. You know, whether it's Riggs in Lethal Weapon or whether it's Axel F in Beverly Hills Cop or whether it's Fletch. It's all about the jeans, the t-shirt, and then either a bomber jacket, like a flight jacket, a hoodie, like a casual hoodie, or a Letterman jacket. Like those were the three. That's what I thought about. And it was funny, like Eddie Murphy, when he was making the fourth Beverly Hills Cop movie, you know, people tried to keep foisting that black and white Letterman jacket on him. And he was like, why? And they were like, well, you wear it in the first two movies. Like, if you're bringing back Axel F the way people remember Axel F, and you're going to start referencing the first movie, you've got to wear this jacket. He's like, right, but Axel doesn't just wear that jacket throughout the movies. They're like, no, but this has now become the Axel F jacket. Like, that's what we... Like, they were trying to explain to him that the fans picture Axel in that jacket, even if he doesn't always wear that jacket. We picture him in that jacket. Fletch puts on lots of outfits throughout the entirety of Fletch, but I always picture him in the jeans, the tank, the baseball tank, and the hoodie from the opening of Fletch. That's how I think of Fletch. It's just, that's where my brain... John McClane, he doesn't always wear a wife beater, tank top vest thing, but that's how you picture him. That's just, you just assume that's what he's wearing at all times.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, Mel Gibson's character in Lethal Weapon, right, with his Canadian tuxedo, right? Like that's, you know, right. He doesn't always wear a Canadian tuxedo, but like with the hair, everything together.
It's what Chuck Norris, I assume, is always in a Canadian tuxedo, although he probably is not in a Canadian tuxedo very often. I just think of him in canon films in a Canadian tuxedo.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we just accept these things. But no, I've never seen anybody like dressed like Anthony Edwards who's meant to be a cop. I don't even understand. I can't even think of like even, you know, in cop movies, especially like 80s cop movies, although it was best parodied in the rival Garbage Man dead body movie Men at Work with Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. There's always the other team. There's always the team that, like, they think that by kissing ass and being by the book, they're going to get it done. And they're always like, oh, how did Axel, you know, or how did Riggs and Murtaugh come in and, you know, win our case for us when we've just been doing the grunt work, right? Yeah. And they get frustrated, and maybe there's a little rivalry between the two of them, or they have some, like, witty banter back and forth, or, you know, they insult each other or whatever. And then maybe by the end, one of them is in danger and they save him and they all find true, you know, meaning and love and happiness or whatever. But that normally is what happens in a movie with these people. He's dressed like one of the other guys. He's not dressed like the cops we want to be watching. Right. You know what I mean? We want to be watching Riggs and Murtaugh or Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy or, Fletch or Axel F. and Billy Rosewood or whatever. Like, that's who we want to be watching. We don't want to be... no one understands why we're watching Anthony Edwards. They're looking at it and going, this guy's the other guy. Surely he's the guy who wears all the silk shirts and winds up with egg on his face because every time he challenges Riggs or Murtaugh or whatever, Riggs and Murtaugh are like, well, actually, we have the bad guy waiting in this box. And they go, oh, look, we have the bad guy all along. And he's like, oh, Coises, I thought I'd got Riggs and Murtaugh. Whatever it is. He's that guy. He's not our hero. Why is he our hero?
Yeah. Well, he's not only is he that guy. So, there's always that applause scene, right, where the jerk guy gets decked by the hero.
The Back to the Future scene. The
exactly.
Biff drives into the truck of manure.
Yeah.
There always has to be that. In the middle of a car chase, they have to leave the other guys behind with a blown gasket or something.
Right. Anthony Edwards' character is the guy who gets decked by the girlfriend of the, he's William Atherton getting decked by Bonnie Bedelia in Die Hard. That's what Anthony Edwards' character is.
I'm like, why is this cheeseball? Why are we even following him?
Right, exactly.
Now, I think we're meant to be, wasn't it funny that he keeps falling over in fish cuts?
Right, yes.
But what they've forgotten to do, is give us a hero, right? So we have Lance Henriksen, who we love because he's greasy and weird and chewing his vowels and trying to do the Louisiana accent and all the other stuff, right? And he has a hook for a hand.
Yes.
So we're immediately into Lance Henriksen, but we also can't trust him as far as we can throw him. So he can't be our hero. No. He can't be our hero because he could end up being the murderer or whatever. Yeah. So Anthony Edwards, by default, because he's the one who's coming out of town, and normally as well, they come in from out of town, and the town sheriff is like, oh, you're not going to understand how to get on in Louisiana. Right. And then within 5 minutes, they've done a huge coke bust, and they've succeeded where the Louisiana police have failed for fucking decades. Right. And they're like, I own this town now, bitch, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm an LA cop and I'm kicking ass, right? None of that. From the moment we meet Anthony Edwards, he's getting his silk shirts covered in mud, blood, fish guts, water, sweat, effluent, the sex juices of that random woman who does a weird striptease for him out of nowhere. What was that all about?
Yeah, she just shows up with his handcuffs because he's like, I'm just going to go to bed or something. I'm going to like look up stuff for the case. And she's like, okay, go ahead, look up stuff for the case. And then she just I'm going to do this. And that was, like you said, that was completely just, she had a thing for him from the beginning. Right. And that didn't make any sense either.
No, she had a thing for him because it said in the script she has a thing for him.
Right.
And no one explained it.
She's just like checking him out from the moment she meets him. And it's like, why is she checking him out? Because he's not some cool LA guy. No. He's Anthony Edwards with weird hair and he's just been covered in fish guts too. So it's like there's nothing that he's doing on a charisma level that is superseding fish guts and a bad suit.
There is nothing he is doing on the charisma level that is superseding fish guts. Right. Quote of the day, Matt Poirier from the After Movie Diner. That sounds incredible. You're totally right. Like Anthony Edwards is the problem character here, and it's not necessarily anything Anthony Edwards is doing, although he's also not. He's just not the character we need at the center of the story. And maybe they were trying to do something different, or maybe they were trying to do a comedic partnership, or maybe they expected, more fireworks, or whatever it was. I don't know. But the end of the story, at the end of the day, is that the draw here is sort of the goofy but swampy Louisiana detective movie. It's far more a detective movie than it is a horror or an action film, although it has aspects of both because it does have some slashing or murders in it, but it also has sort of some action sequences as well and some stunts. But really, it's a Louisiana set swampy detective movie with a great Lance Henriksen, a compromised Anthony Edwards, and that at least keeps you trundling along towards the end. I don't know how much I care about any of it, but it was quite fun watching it.
Yeah, I think it is, like you said, it's a fun time. I think again, this one, like Troll is the kind of movie that you can center a movie night with a bunch of friends around. I don't know how many people Delta Heat's more of like a solo mish. Like you kind of just watch this one by yourself. You're killing time on the Saturday afternoon or something like that. But it works in that capacity. I think the one thing that would have made it better for me is if that police chief character was played by Charles Napier. That's the one piece that they should have shelled out a little bit extra for Napier, or Napes as to call him. Get him in there as like the because he could do that part really well. So that's the only thing that this movie was missing for me. But overall, like you said, it's going to get you to the church on time. As bad as it is.
What about a double bill of this and Hard Target?
Yeah. Yeah, that would that would be an interesting combination. Yeah, if you if you had these two, I mean the Henriksen part, right, and even Stone Cold, right, is another one too.
And being set in New Orleans.
Yeah, well, that's right, Hard Target, right? Because it's like that whole idea of like we've got to have an excuse for Van Damme's accent. Which the funny thing is, right? You hear this one, you've got some characters that have like legit, they practice and do the Cajun accent really well, and so it's like you hear that and you're like, Van Damme doesn't sound like them. Just because he speaks French doesn't mean he's Cajun.
Doesn't mean he's Cajun, but it's fine. I mean, it's all good. They said it in Louisiana. They give him a French sounding name, and we're all, and they give him a greasy mullet, and we're all like, is it Chance Boudreau or something? Isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're Chance Boudreau, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yes, that is right. I am Chance Boudreau. It rhymes with Clouseau. Because we both have ridiculous accents. But yeah, I think this on a double bill with Hard Target would work. Which one I think you would have to broadcast this first, because Hard Target would have to swoop in and sort of save it. Yeah. But you would get enough interest out of it that you were like, oh, well, they showed me Delta Heat, and I wouldn't have seen Delta Heat otherwise. So, okay, I saw Delta Heat. But then I got to see Hard Target on the big screen, and that's what I came for. I got to see Hard Target on the big screen. Great. And then maybe you'd give Delta Heat a slight thought in the background, one afternoon. But in general, it would be like, you know what? I saw Delta Heat. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let's check that off the list and move on. But again, what's odd is it's a romp, but so sort of a comedic romp, but the crimes that are happening or the people who are doing the crimes are pretty fucking serious, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's like hearts being ripped out. Murders all over the place. People getting, it's like anytime somebody's in the movie, whenever somebody's being questioned or something like that, they end up dead. Like a few scenes later with their hearts ripped out and all these horrible deaths and everything. So that's the other piece of it, right? Is that tonally it's a little off, because it's like you get these offbeat things with Anthony Edwards getting in the mud and stuff like that and joking around with Lance Henriksen. Yeah. And then they're going to a crime scene where somebody's heart's missing. And like even his partner, when he's there in LA to try to fight, they ripped out his heart, man. Like it's like this real serious thing. And you're like not expecting goofiness. And then he goes to meet this Cajun guy and he's like getting his pants in the mud and stuff like that. And so it's like tonally it's kind of all over the place too.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's where tonally you can be over the top and funny with a lot of gore. Like a great example of it is Split Second, where it has sort of very graphic death scenes, but Rutger Hauer then comes in his size 14s, sucking on a stogie and waving an enormous gun around. And you're like, oh, okay, that's the movie I'm in. I'm in the movie where the detective is this overblown, ridiculous Rutger Hauer guy, but he's going to load up on guns and kill the devil angel or whatever it is at the end of the movie. And we're going to be in good hands. You don't feel like you're in good hands with Anthony Edwards. That's the real problem, is you kind of go, well, he's sort of being this weird, like if it was a romantic lead. And I know they always talk about sort of the homoerotic nature of buddy cop films or whatever it is. But if it was a romantic lead and it was sort of a, Romance of the Stone, where part of the humor was, well, I can handle myself in the jungle, blah, 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 blah. I can't handle myself in the jungle. Why the fuck are we in the jungle? Like if that was sort of the banter. And I guess they were going with that with Henriksen and Edwards as being sort of the romantic couple. But for some reason, it doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
I wanted it to work more. Like if it was more like the Defiant Ones or something where they were handcuffed together and they had to deal with it. Well, there is towards the end. Yeah. They do have a Defiant One sequence, right? Where they're handcuffed together.
Yeah.
But again, don't they come out of the water and kind of make like boo faces and then it like freeze frames kind of thing? Yeah. We're like, we're still partners. We're handcuffed together. Boo! Oh, freeze frame. And then it ends with like some saxophone. Delta heat. You know, they're all like funky, swampy saxophone. Meanwhile, they're just like freeze frame in the water with handcuffs. Oh, it's so funny.
Well, because that's not even the end scene, right? Because then they have another scene where Anthony Edwards is leaving and he's saying goodbye to the lady. And then it's like one of those, it's like a brunch at some kind of like traditional kind of New Orleans outdoor dining al fresco kind of thing that you would expect in like a Matlock episode or something like that. Yeah, it's like.
Right. And then don't they get in the same... Do they get in the same train compartment or the same car? Where do they get in the same car, right?
They get the truck. He takes them in his truck, I think.
Right. And the indication basically is that he's not going anywhere. They're going to end up being just buddy cops in Louisiana together.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think like the alligators in the back of the truck eating his luggage or whatever.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Where are the last... You know, he'll get in and he'll be like, oh, the last of my clothes, I only had like 2 more suits left or whatever. Right. And then it'll cut to the alligator like eating his suit.
Right.
You know, like... Oh, scribbity-doo. He's got none of the clothes that he turned up with because of all the hijinks. Scribbly-doo. That's sort of what I feel about this movie. But I did enjoy it. I mean, it's one of those... It was a bit like that one I was telling you about with James Remar in it. Quiet, cool. That was what it was. So, yeah, I mean, it pairs well with like a James Remar and Quiet, Cool. It's not ever going to be it's not the undiscovered either detective or action classic we wish it was, but there's enough here to make it recommendable to the right audience.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's the kind of thing that you could do a good job killing, you know, a weekend, you know, like a afternoon on a weekend with, you know, it works for that for sure.
No, definitely. Yeah. But I mean, there's been there's like a serial killer, and it's, you know, 2 cops on the wrong side of the tracks from each other, trying to investigate the serial killer and the hijinks. And I think if Anthony Edwards, as the so-called super smart LA cop, occasionally got something right, that would be fine. But I don't think he does get anything right throughout the whole movie. No, I think the only person who's always one step ahead of everybody is Lance Henriksen.
Right, because he thinks he has it right. Remember, he thinks he's got it all figured out at the end, but it turns out he doesn't. He was wrong. Yeah,
he was wrong about everything. Yeah. So again, I'm like, well, he's not a very good detective. He wears horrible clothes. He's not very good on his feet because he's always falling in things. Right. I don't really understand why I'm watching this movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But that's Delta Heat for you.
That's Delta Heat. Yeah.
It is. So anything else to be said, Matt, about either of these 2 films?
No, I think they're both fun times. I think obviously Troll is the better of the 2. I think for me, I think it has a better appeal. It's got more going on with it than this movie for sure. But you know, this movie will, you know, Delta Heat. You know, again, it's a good time killer as well. So
yeah, I gave it 3.5.
Yeah, that's about where I probably land.
It's probably a 3 actually. I'm probably giving an extra half for Henriksen's hair sweat. Right. That's probably what I'm doing. I probably shouldn't give Henriksen quite the much credit as I do, but he's probably pipping me that extra half a star that otherwise Anthony Edwards is removing. Like that half a star, I sort of see it like this, with Anthony Edwards being like, no, we don't deserve it. And Henriksen kind of being like, but I was kind of cool. And Enter, no, but we don't deserve it. Like it's sort of corroding from both sides, that half a star. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would almost give it that half a star just for that one scene where Henriksen, early on when he's out like in the bayou or whatever, and he's got a raccoon on his shoulder. Like might be worth a half a star.
Yeah, but he should have the raccoon on his shoulder for the rest of the movie.
Right, that raccoon should have been hanging out the whole day. Remember, they have to save it at the end when the place is on fire, and Anthony Edwards is like, just leave it.
Right.
He's like, I can't just leave my raccoon in a cage. And,
right. Well, it should have been like, the monkey in Any Which Way But Loose. He should have been, or the basset hound in Smokey and the Bandit.
Right.
He should be up front, sat in the car while they're experiencing their delta heat.
Exactly.
The raccoon should be driving. You know what I mean? While Edwards and Henriksen are bitching in the background about shirt materials or something.
Yes. That would be perfect.
You know what I mean? The only thing a shirt should feel like is old rags. It should be made out of old rags and disappointment. That's what a shirt should feel like. Rubbish, dude. Like a shirt should be like gray fucking silk and beautiful. It should be worn with a 3-piece suit. And I can't do the accents, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I do, yeah.
Meanwhile, the raccoon is like, where are we going? Are we left at the lights? Are we left at the lights? I'm just doing this with my little raccoon hands. I don't even know where we're going. Are we left at the lights?
The little raccoon hand doing kind of the wax on, wax off.
Yeah.
The dad.
Now I got reverse. I'll find a place to turn around. Fuck. Yeah. I did ask. Right. They're like, well, not in enough time, raccoon.
Right.
We were too busy bitching about whether the silk content of a grown adult's shirt.
Yeah.
And we've decided on zero silk content.
Right, exactly.
But no, this has been super fun, man. And
it's been a good time.
We'll do this again.
All right, sounds good. All right, man.
Everybody must get lost. Rusted automobile has a missing door. She's far away from here. If we fight to keep our footing in the coming war, someone will only interfere. Well, our fire burns bright, but of the current horizon I'm losing sight. And sometimes you're just bringing up the rear. They've scrapped your hopes and dreams and destroyed your career. And now you're nothing but a volunteer. The air conditioning took too much on its shoulders, and I've donated all my heartstrings to the crowd. If it all goes south, remember that we warned you not to put all your money in the cloud. We've got all the encyclopedias, but none of the obedience. And sometimes you'll get lost and disavowed. And a fall is always waiting after you get proud. But if you get lost, get loud. Let's be harebrained. Let's be wild. Let's reconstruct the moments when we were most defiled. Let's take a moment to consider the alternative and be thankful that the other half can't anticipate how we live, despite being underpaid and overtrained. When normalcy can no longer be sustained, and all the heads of industry have already been named. Let's just get harebrained. Let's just get harebrained. Woo! The discarded tape cassettes and broken crayons. She's dancing in painted-on shoes. We'll keep our heads about us, chasing stars on a crooked line. Pay no attention to all the bad reviews. straighten up, fly right, be merry, be the icing between the cake and the cherry. With sheer force of will, ignore these loosened screws. Pretend you have a choice and go through the motions as you choose. Whichever way you're facing, embrace the fact you lose. So let's be harebrained, let's be unkempt. Let's reconstruct the moments when you misunderstood just what I meant. Let's take a moment to consider the alternative and be thankful that the other half can't anticipate how we live, despite being underpaid and overtrained. When normalcy can no longer be sustained, and when you tore down all the banners and only rainbows still remain, let's just be harebrained. Let's just be harebrained. Yeah, when you tore down all the banners and only rainbows still remained, let's just get harebrained. Let's be harebrained.